Hello there, everybody. It's me, Garrett Kidney, the co-host of You've Got to Be Kidding Me on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network.
And I am Liam Jones, my full name, and I'm also a part of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network as a co-host for You've Got to Be Kidding Me.
We are a TNA history podcast that covers TNA 1 month at a time. We cover all the drama, all the matches, all the Vince Russo nonsense you could ever want in your life.
Have you heard of TNA? I bet you have, but would it be funnier if two people made jokes over it the whole time? Probably.
So if that sounds like fun to you, check it out on this very Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network, and Liam will do bits and whatnot.
Hello, do you like New Japan Pro Wrestling? Are you a Shin Nihon freak? If so, check out the Super J-Cast with Joel and Damon on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network.
And even if you fucking hate New Japan Pro Wrestling, listen to the Super J-Cast anyway. Not just for our great show reviews, analysis, and pastrami sandwiches, but there's also usually some dick jokes somewhere in the obligatory opening 30 minutes of absolute nonsense we chat about every single week. That's the Super J-Cast for all the best talk about New Japan Pro Wrestling, crisps, and pornography.
This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
What do you guys want to talk about?
You are listening to the Flagship Podcast with your hosts, Joe Lanza.
What has being annoying stopped you ever?
That's an excellent point. Right. An excellent point. That's part of the charm.
Rich Crage.
Corey Graves screaming, perfectly legal, Cole. You can do anything you want in Tribal Combat. It's perfectly legal. While Paul Heyman is just yelling, Tribal Combat, Tribal Combat, Tribal Combat, Tribal Combat, Tribal Combat. I'm like, God damn it. Fuck all of you. Fuck this.
And we are live on the Flagship Podcast. I am Rich. He is Joe. Joe, what is happening? What a week in wrestling, man. A lot of stuff going on.
I did something to the fucking the YouTube. I enlarged it, and now I can't see the chat, and I don't know how to change. What the fuck did I do to this thing?
You have a lot of tech issues here. You can't get the Amazon Thursday night football game going on. You're a disaster.
What? Okay, so I have like this. I forget it. Nobody cares. I'm not gonna be able to figure this out though, and I can't. I like to be able to see.
You need to see the chat. Okay. So I have a different screen than you have, so I can't really help you. I got the live studio screen, so I see it a little different than you do. I don't know.
See, if I enlarge the screen in the corner with the corner gimmick, then it puts it on the whole screen. That's no good either. And then what it did is I hit something and it gave me like
you hit something fucking, and then something happened. Okay,
it gave me a widescreen view of the YouTube video and took the chat. off of the
I know
side.
what you did. I know what you did. Here, go to YouTube.com. Right, you're on your little YouTube, right?
I'm obviously on there. Yes.
I'm just kidding. Okay. Did you try restarting? Did you try restarting your computer, Joe? I'm kidding. No, the problem what you got to do is on the bottom right. There should be you're in theater mode, is what the kids call it, I believe. Get off theater mode. So
default view. There it is.
There it is. See?
There it is.
Tech help.
Tremendous job, Craig. That was fantastic.
See, I'm good.
I'm so happy about that.
That's why they pay me the big bucks. Now you can hear all these idiots making fun of you in the chat room. So.
Yeah. Why would anyone fucking use that? I guess, all right. Actually, I do see a function for that.
Well, just go full screen, though. No, go full screen. Theater mode's shit. It's stupid.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, why wouldn't you just hit the full screen? Like, I use the full screen. I utilize that.
Right.
The theater mode seems like a complete waste to me. I don't see what function that would perform. Like,
I guess the full screen would put it in, a square, and you want 16:9. It's all dumb. No, go full screen. You know what? Go full screen.
If you want 16:9 and you want like some highfalutin experience,
go watch something on your TV. Go watch something on your TV.
How about go buy a TV like a normal person?
Right.
Like that. So again, I reject that as well. I don't accept that as an explanation as to why that exists. Now, the mini player, I get that too, because you might want to continue scrolling the site or doing whatever
mini player.
Yeah,
mini player. Fully get the mini player.
I've used that on occasion. Full screen, obviously. I was just watching some wrestling on the full screen. I get that too. but this theater mode is bullshit. Like, what is the point of this? It's got to be some fucking like college kid thing. Like, who else would use this and why?
It's got to be one of those TikTok things or something. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I see what you mean. Like, if you're in a dorm and like that's how you guys watch TV is through like
yeah, that's what I mean by that. Yeah. Because I don't understand otherwise what would ever be the function for this. This is fuck. All right, well, we solved that problem.
Thank God.
Now we could yes, I couldn't get on with the show until we fix that.
So Hothead says the full screen will take all of the screen. On theater mode, you can use other tabs while watching a bigger screen, which is just A, get 2 monitors. What? Or B, like, you're clearly not paying enough attention if you're going tab to tab and all that sort of stuff.
Why?
So
What do you need other tabs for if you're watching something?
Oh, you're clearly not focused. Yeah. I don't know. I'm with you. I reject theater mode.
And you could just, like, the standard size screen also still gives you the tabs. So what do you need the theater?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't get it. Yeah, I've never used theater mode. I only know theater mode because sometimes I fuck up and I hit theater mode and I'm like, what's going on here? I don't like theater mode. And then I get out of there. So we're back. And the No Dope chat room, lively as always here on a Thursday night. Flagship Live. Plenty to get to on this week's show. There is a ton of shit going on in wrestling. We have CMLL's 90th anniversary show. I almost forgot about that. Thank God Cubs fan blessed me with an email this morning to remind me that at Voices of Wrestling there's a preview from Cubs fan. He had to remind me to post it. And then I also remembered, hey, their 90th anniversary is coming up this weekend. You got to talk about 90. When you're in business 90 years and you're celebrating that with a big time show, you got to talk about that. So yeah, we could not miss the CMLL 90th anniversary. So we will talk about that. We also promised this last week. I don't know if we promised it on air or off air, but you and I both did some catch up on the recent tournaments in Japan, the Royal Road, All Japan's Royal Road tournament, as well as Noah's N-1 Victory tournament. So we're going to talk about those. I believe did you watch the entire N-1? You went back and watched everything, right?
In 3 days.
Wow. So I didn't go that far. I watched a lot. I did not watch everything from the N1, but you watched everything. I also watched the Royal Road. There's also the Kento Miyahara Yuma Anzai match from September 9th last week that I did want to touch on a little bit as well. It's a pretty big match in the history of Anzai and a big match between Miyahara and Anzai there. So we'll talk about that one. We have rumors abound about Jade Cargill and Edge and what their next steps of their careers could possibly be. You addressed some of those on the Thursday Dynamite reviews about Jade Cargill. We'll talk a little bit about the Edge thing and PW Insider, updating their initial report. And I wonder if that it kind of, I don't know. I'll read what they said, and you can see if it sort of changes your thoughts on what could potentially be coming down the line for Edge. We also have turnstiles. We're talking turnstiles this week in the world of wrestling because WrestleNomics reports that All In's turnstile count is much lower than what they announced as their paid tickets. And people are losing their goddamn minds, and we'll talk all about that and what it means and if it still breaks records and all that other good stuff. We'll talk about turnstiles. More than you could ever possibly imagine. Turnstile counts will be discussed. We'll also, speaking of turnstile counts, AEW ticket sales not doing great over the next couple of weeks. They just had their second worst attended Dynamite of all time, or the second worst attended TV show of the year, I should say. Let me preface it better. Second worst attended AEW TV show of the year. Only worse than a collision in Regina was a little bit worse than this. So we'll talk about that because that is not an isolated issue. That is coming up with a bunch of collisions coming up, with a bunch of Dynamites coming up, with the pay-per-views coming up. They are having issues selling tickets. So we are going to talk a little bit about that. And we're also going to get into Raw and NXT, and Raw having a record low number rating this week. NXT having a near record best number on their end, so kind of the different sides there with Raw, having one of the worst, I think it is the least watched episode of Raw in history. Only worst one was a best of show, while NXT has one of their best ratings of all time with Becky Lynch and Tiffany Stratton. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But first, we do have to talk about probably the biggest news of the week, which is unbelievable, and with all that other stuff going on, biggest news of the week. The wrestling business has completely changed. What the business was last week and what the business is this week has been completely altered by the brand new TKO Group Holdings. And for people that do not know, I don't know how you can't possibly know what this is at this point, but TKO Group Holdings is obviously a collection, a conglomerate, a combat sports conglomerate, basically. UFC, and WWE merging together with Endeavor to form this brand new TKO Group Holdings thing, and all of them being under one umbrella. It became official. We knew it was going to happen. It became official this week. Of course, they are now publicly traded, and there's a whole lot of stuff going on that relates to that. But I think that, the first thing we'll talk about, and there's some news that has kind of broken as we've started this show, and Nick Khan sent around a memo to internal WWE employees about what's going to happen for them in the next couple of days, which is not good for them if you're an employee of WWE. We'll read that letter in a bit, but Joe, before we kind of get into that, what are your overall thoughts about this whole TKO Group thing? Because we are now entering a kind of a new world in wrestling, particularly in WWE, where this company is not majority owned by a McMahon anymore. I mean, you have to go back to the Capital Wrestling Corporation, to the beginnings in the early 1950s, all the way through everything else, and especially Vince McMahon, who started opening this company in 1982. We're here now on September 14th, 2023, and while he still has a ton of power in TKO Group's holding, while he still has a ton of power over WWE, and while he arguably is still the most important figure in the company, he doesn't majority own it anymore, and it's just kind of a different world. Like, a lot of different things can potentially happen with this. I don't know what's going to happen. We have no idea what this business is going to look like under this new TKO Group thing, but it's a new world. It's a whole new world. What have you thought about this the TKO Group Holdings rollout, and how do you think it's going to affect WWE business, or maybe not? Maybe you don't think it's going to affect it at all, and it's going to be business as usual for them.
I never thought it would come to this. I never would have wagered that this would ever be outside the control of the family, ever. I always thought that there was a sentimentality to Vince. All other issues with him aside and everything else, he seems to be a sentimental person in some ways, and I never thought he would take what was considered a family business in this direction. He's just about 80 years old. And I understand this was a good move for him financially, but, and I understand that he thinks he's immortal, but, I'm just not sure how much money you need when you're 80. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he just made $111 million he made the other day, which is like, great, but you're like 80. I was thinking about that. I'm like, what do you do if you're Vince McMahon? Like, what? Like, he's going to die soon, and he's going to die with more money than he's ever going to need. Like, where does that? I guess you share it with the rest of the family or whatever. But like, you had this company too that you were going to share with the rest of the family. So I don't know. All bets are kind of off with what you do with that money. I don't know. Maybe he'll die and give it all to charity or something. Who the fuck knows?
He had more money than he needed before. That's kind of my point. Like, I guess they say, how much is enough? And the answer is always, it's never enough when it comes to the extremely wealthy. But I just thought, being 80 years old and already having more than you could ever spend for multiple generations. And I never thought it would come to this. I just, so I think that's the most surprising thing. It makes me think that all of the rumors and conjecture that there are major rifts in that family are true.
You have to.
Yeah, I thought Nick.
You have to think
Khan. Yeah, I thought Nick Khan gave a very interesting answer to Bill Simmons this week when they were talking about Stephanie McMahon.
Thank God Bill Simmons, the first person to ask any executive in that company, hey, what happened to the person that was the face of this company for the last 2 decades that mysteriously disappeared once Vince McMahon came back? And oh yeah, it's Vince's daughter. And oh yeah, Paul, that's your wife. Can we ask it? Bill Simmons got to be the first person to ask about Stephanie? Thank God he did. Jesus Christ. How did that go that long?
Do you expect wrestling reporters to do that?
Yes. I don't know why I did. I thought somebody would say, hey, Paul, what's your wife up to? Like, you don't even have to go. Like, I always said this with these press. You don't have to go and dig in and say, hey, are you and Stephanie still married? Or there's been rumors that you guys are divorced. You can simply ask Paul, what's next for Stephanie? Now she's exited the company. She was the stand-in CEO while Vince was gone. What's next for Stephanie? And let him answer that, right? You let him say something. Nobody even bothered to ask once about Stephanie. She just disappeared off the face of the fucking earth after being the corporate public face of this company for decades.
You're just gonna get
unbelievable.
You're gonna get a stock prepared answer anyway.
That's fine. I don't care.
And you don't get a follow up in these scenarios. And
so you're gonna ask him, hey, how was booking Payback?
Well, no, Rich. That's the thing. I'm not disagreeing with you. What I'm saying is, you maybe now they're only doing these pressers 5 times a year for the Big Four and Money in the Bank, which they consider a major pay-per-view now. I think that's what they said. And so you have 5 cracks at these people at Triple H. And there might be 2 or 3 reporters in that room max who have the guts to ask a question that's meaningful in any way. And
I don't even feel like it's that meaningful. You know what I mean? Like, you can make it not that meaningful. You can just ask simply.
My point is, just look at the odds here. Okay, you might have 2 or 3 people in the room who are going to ask a decent question, a Brandon Thurston or somebody like that, and then they have to get called on, and then they get 1 crack at it, and they have to make a decision. All right, I get 1 crack at this. I don't get a follow up. What am I going to ask? So when you look at all of that, what are the odds that someone's event? Because the rest of the people in that room are your Steve Falls and your dopey outlets that clap for the wrestlers and play along and right. And you know, a bunch of fucking idiots.
The wrestlers come out and do the arm thing where they say, yeah, give me a reaction, and they go, yeah. It's like, oh god.
You know, and so, you know, and quite honestly, we have, you know, you see a lot of wrestling fans who actually push back on the idea that there should be real questions asked. Oh, it's part of the entertainment. Oh, lighten up. You know what? People don't even deserve it, Rich. These fans don't even deserve it.
Yeah, you're right.
You know,
you're
because
right,
they don't even they don't even want it.
Well, God bless the sports guy for actually asking that question then.
Right. So you're absolutely right. Bill Simmons asked an actual good question and pressed them a little bit on it. Now he still didn't get an answer, and eventually you have to give up. It's not Meet the Press. It's still the Bill Simmons podcast, and it
with his former agent. Yeah, he's not exactly going to roast the guy.
That's as hard he was going to go. But Bill Simmons is also smart enough and savvy enough to know that he wasn't going to get the answer he was looking for once he pressed him once or twice on it, and you have to move on. You have to move on at that point, because again, this isn't fucking, you know. I don't even know what example to give of some, you know, it's not the time or place to continue down that path and make it contentious. But you're right. He was finally someone who did ask about that. But circling back to my point, I you know, it makes me think there was an interesting answer that he gave Nick Khan gave when he was talking about Stephanie. And he said something to the effect of their issues or something like that. And he kind of caught himself. I felt like he caught himself, you know. So, you know, all of this adds up to, I think that there are, you know, again, it's just conjecture, but I think that there may be major rifts in that family, because I don't think this was a move that I thought Vince would ever make. I don't think that an 80-year-old man needs to be more wealthy than he already is. And it's very conspicuous that Stephanie McMahon just isn't involved whatsoever anymore. She gets fired. Let's face it. She got fired. Call it whatever you want. She got pushed out. Vince's sex deeds come to light. So they bring her back in as a public face because they wanted a McMahon to be the public face. We all know that's what the deal was. She agreed to it. And then Vince comes back and she's gone again. I mean, come on. I mean,
doesn't take you don't need to be an investigative journalist to say something's weird here. Especially, you know, the person that largely was groomed to take over this company for 20 plus years. I mean, I wrote about it. I did an article for our Patreon a couple of like about a week or so ago about how, hey, this has totally changed. Like we're seeing a brand new wrestling world here. And I talked about how it felt for a long time like, yeah, it was Vince's company that he inherited from his grandfather, and then his father who inherited from his grandfather. Like, it was a family business for so long. And it felt like, you know, in the late 90s, it kind of felt like, okay, this is going to be Shane's business. It's going to be Shane McMahon's business whenever he wants it. And he was kind of being groomed as the next in the line or whatever. Then that sort of started to cool a little bit for whatever reason, whether it's Shane decided I was going to go try and do different things, or a little bit of an issue between Shane and Vince. But then, Shane exited and he was gone, and he cashed out all of his stuff and said, I'm going to go do, streaming television in China or whatever the hell his companies were they ended up doing. So he was kind of out of the picture. And that's when Stephanie and Paul took over. And really, from that point forward, Shane popped back a little bit here and there, but he never felt like he was being groomed to be the next in the line for that company. He felt like, yeah, you can maybe, have an executive position, and yeah, you'll make a lot of money because we're just a wealthy family, but you are no longer inheriting this company. Stephanie and Paul are going to inherit this company. And it felt like for 20 years, that's what the whole thing was built up for these people, that when Vince eventually, whether he died or just said, I'm giving it up, I'm done, here, it's your guys' company now. That was in place. That was ready to go, in place, all set up. And over the course of, a year and a half, basically, we've seen that completely unravel to where we are now, where Vince cashed in his family business and said, fuck it, I don't care. The lineage ends. Here, take a bunch of money. Now, he's still, I said, he's still an executive. He still owns a percentage. He does all this sort of stuff, but they don't own this company anymore. They don't own this business anymore. The McMahons don't own WWE anymore. They're not in full control. Vince cannot just...
And when he dies, they're completely out.
They're done. Yeah, they're done. Yeah. So the lineage, the connection, I saw somebody make this connection as well. The territories are now officially dead. Did you ever think about that? This was it. Well, this is the last connection to it. Was because what else is left of the original territories?
Like New York is gone.
Right. Like that's gone now. Right. Like that was, and like nobody connected that to the territories anymore anyway. But like if you wanted to, you could draw a through line from Jess McMahon to Vince Senior to Vince Junior to whatever. Like that's done now.
It was a direct lineage.
Right.
Sure.
Right. To the Capital Wrestling, the Worldwide Wrestling Federation, New York, the NWA, all that sort of stuff. That's done. We are close that book. I don't know why you're still writing that book. That's a very long book if you're including the last 30 years in the territory book. But now you can officially close it once and for all. But more than that, like you said, the family business is dead now. That family business is done. This is just a conglomerate now with no real connection whatsoever to the McMahon family, other than that Vince is an executive there and Paul's kind of hanging around for now. But yeah, there's nothing in place that's going to make sure and ensure that the McMahons stay in control forever with this company, like it was for the last 70 years, basically.
No, that's over. When he's gone, that's it. When Vince is gone, that's it. And that is going to happen over the next 20 years. I mean,
Linda's not a part of it anymore because she spent years as the president of the company.
79 years old. So even if he lives to 100, he can't work till he's 100. I mean, so it does very shortly there won't be. And then TKO can do whatever the fuck they want with it. They can sell it to the Khan family. They can fold it up if it becomes unprofitable, which that's not going to happen. They could, but the point is they could do whatever they want with it at that point, and then the McMahons have no say whatsoever. And I have to think that some of this is Vince being spiteful over something. I mean, because I just never thought it would ever come to this. If nothing else,
there was no signs of it. There was no signs of it ever happening before. It's not like he floated this for sale numerous times throughout the last, 50 years or whatever, or, the last, at least his control, going back to 1982 or whatever. So the last, nearly or a little over 40 years now. Like there's never been another time where he's kind of been like, let's see what somebody wants to pay for this thing. Like he just never did that through the thick and the thin and the ups and the downs or whatever. They went public, but still he held majority control. There was a ton of McMahons on the board or whatever. Like, yeah, it went public so they could make a shit ton more money, and they did, but it was still all about him having control of that company. They were a public company, but he could never get voted out. He could never get stomped out. The McMahons were still completely in charge of that company, and now they're completely not in charge of the company. And it's just wild, because that's just not what this business has been ever at any point, and it's crazy. So I would have thought he would want to go to the grave knowing that it's still the family business. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And it's obvious that that's not the case. Now, I also would have thought that eventually Nick Khan would have moved on to his next path power broker spot in another company at some point, but I think Nick Khan sticks with this for the long haul because why wouldn't he?
Well, and now especially
yeah,
now
that's what I mean.
It's not a wrestling business anymore. It's a combat sports conglomerate entertainment company now.
That's right, and he is a major power broker in it, and he's going to be I believe he will be the one running the wrestling end when Vince is gone. Whereas if Vince had remained, had not sold, I think that Nick Khan eventually would have moved on. And I think Nick Khan probably had a lot to do with swaying Vince into all of these directions.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, everything changed when he hired Nick Khan.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Nick Khan, people get real mad at us when we talk about it. I don't understand.
Look at how much this guy has transformed this company in what, 4 years, 5 years?
Listen, I guarantee there's people in the chat. He's a corporate ghoul. Calm down. This is real life. I'm sorry you don't like billionaires. What do you want me to do about it? I have to talk about it. And it's like, everything changed when he hired that guy, and the guy has done nothing but in terms of helping Vince McMahon make money. He is without question the greatest hire Vince McMahon ever made. It's not even in dispute. Everything changed. And I think he probably had a lot of sway in this decision as well, because it benefits him long term.
Absolutely.
I mean, and people like downplay, any corporate ghoul could do what stop. This guy was well known within that world as the go-to person for sports rights negotiations and knowing where all those things are going.
That's why they went to him when they signed these giant deals that made them completely, they're so insulated from success, or it doesn't fucking matter. Once they signed those deals, and we said it at the time, go listen to those shows, the second they put pen to paper on those $1 billion worth of television deals, their business changed. It didn't matter. They were post-success, post-wrestling, whatever it was. It didn't matter anymore. They were going to get $1 billion fucking dollars for their television. They were a content company at that point.
Yeah, it's just, anyway, but I think that Nick Khan probably had a lot to do with this as well, because obviously you could see where it benefits him greatly moving forward. And now I don't think he'll go anywhere. If he'd be, very wise to just stick with this TKO group, and he's a great ally for them to have.
Absolutely. Well, because even if he thought, even he thought it was that he's working in the lowbrow wrestling business, which at this point he's kind of shed that, and he's helped be a big part of shedding that to the corporate world, the wrestling business and making it like. But now with this TKO group, it's not wrestling. You know what I mean? Like, because there's always a little bit more respect given, I guess, to the mixed martial arts UFC, which seems kind of wild given where UFC was and where mixed martial arts was in like the early 90s or whatever, when it was like getting, Inside Edition was doing reports on like human cage fighting. Look what's going on here in this MMA, and now it's like a respected sports property or whatever. But yeah, even if Nick Khan felt that sort of shame that, I'm still in the wrestling business or whatever, he doesn't have to feel that anymore.
Well, the thing about Nick Khan is he was always a fan anyway, so he never looked down on wrestling.
Right.
So he never really had to overcome that feeling of, this is what kind of, because I feel like he was a fan. But yeah, obviously, TKO is a powerhouse, and they've got the most powerful, person in sports media on their side. And, and now at this point, I don't think that he's going to go anywhere was the original point I was going to make. And I think he will be running the wrestling side one day. Essentially, him and Vince run it now.
Right.
So he'll keep ascending that ladder, and, but yeah, anyway.
And he'll sell Vince down a river at some point too. Don't, I think he will. There'll be a point where Vince is getting too old or
because he's 80. There's no, it's like, that's the thing. If Vince was 50, I would understand all of these moves a lot more, because you're 50, you're young, you have so much life to live. I could understand gobbling up as much money as you can at the expense of your family business. But Vince is making this decision with 1% on the life bar, which is what's perplexing to me. And from Nick Khan's point of view, you don't really have to bump this guy out, because he's not long for. I'm not trying to sound morbid or but he's 80. Forget when he's going to pass. He can't work much longer. Even if he's exceptionally healthy, there's not a lot of working years left in this man. So, just from that standpoint, even if he lives to 120 and if he does, whatever, good for him. How many people work past 85 or 90?
Right.
It's just exceedingly rare. So, I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that. I think Nick Khan understands he doesn't have to, wouldn't have to, pull a maneuver like that, because I think he sees that, whose name is on that board, Nick Khan's or Paul Levesque's? He doesn't need to bump anybody out. He's already in position to take over, the whatever phraseology you want to use when Vince is gone. I do want to say one quick thing before we entirely move on, only because it came up in the chat briefly in regards to Bill Simmons. I understand it's funny, but that test thing is such people are making such a big deal out of him not knowing Test was dead. Like, that is like the dumbest thing. If you know maybe people just don't know anything about Bill Simmons or don't listen to his podcast or haven't read Bill Simmons. That was totally just Bill Simmons being Bill Simmons and making a dated pop culture reference as a joke. And he just didn't happen to know that the guy was dead. Like, that was no different than Bill Simmons talking about basketball with somebody and being like, you know what the Nets really need? Bernard King. Like some player from fucking 40 years ago. That's what Bill Simmons was doing when he brought up Test. He wasn't like seriously pitching an angle and not knowing that the guy was dead. It's like with Bill Simmons is like bringing up someone from, 30 years ago on TV, like trying to make a joke or something. That's all he was doing with that. And there's like headlines. Oh, Bill Simmons brings up a man who's been dead for 15 years. So it's like the guy went for a joke. He didn't know the guy was dead. That was like such not a big deal to me.
Right. He was probably just, if you listen to the content or the actual context of it, he's just like, you know what you should do? Bring back Test. Yeah, you can do a storyline with that. And he's just like, Test is dead. He's like, oh, okay, well, didn't know that. Like, he wasn't like, Knicks, hear me out. I got the $1 million idea for you, pal. Like,
and then he followed it up with another joke. He's like, oh, well, does Test have a brother? Like, that was the next thing he said. Like, it was totally in jest.
Yeah, if you don't know Simmons's thing, then I get how you might be.
It's hard for me to explain, but like, you get it.
Yeah,
because you know his sense of humor. Like, his whole thing is he like brings up references from the past, and he just didn't know the guy was dead. It's kind of like what we do. Like,
yeah, we do it all the time. I was gonna say
we do it every show. Like, I'll bring up a reference and you'll be like, is that guy dead? And then we both Google it real fast. Like, yeah, he's dead. It's like, that's essentially what that was. But I mean, I'm just going to chalk that up to people not understanding how, Simmons communicates and his sense of humor or whatnot. But yeah, so now I guess the memo went out about an hour before we started the show that on Friday, tomorrow, we do this live on Thursdays. Tomorrow, Nick Khan sent out a memo telling everybody, hey, look, don't come to the office. Everyone is working from home tomorrow because we're doing massive layoffs.
I got the whole email here if you want me to read it. So, okay. From WWE President Nick Khan to all employees this evening. Hi, all. That's a bad start, by the way. When ncon@wwe.org or whatever, or wwe.com emails you and it starts with hi, all. Yeah, you're fucked. This isn't good. As part of WWE's transition into the newly formed TKO Group Holdings, we are evaluating our existing operations and systems to identify potential synergies across the business. This effort includes workforce reductions, which will take place tomorrow. What a nice way to say you're all fucking fired. Workplace reductions. No, you're not fired. It's just a workplace reduction. Those whose roles have been impacted will be notified by our human resources team, who will share the details of their severance package. We are asking that everybody, sorry, I'm on PW Insider and ads are popping up. We're asking that everybody work remotely Friday, September 15th, so we can ensure all conversations are handled privately and respectfully. We'll send out a company-wide email once all of tomorrow's conversations have happened. Our company is home to the most talented, creative, and hardworking employees in the world. WWE is a special place, which makes moments like this difficult. Just know that we have nothing but gratitude and admiration for everybody we have had the privilege to work alongside. Thank you all for your contributions and dedication.
Yeah, so, obviously, when mergers and acquisitions like this take place, this is not uncommon at all.
No. This anybody who, because everybody was like, oh, who's gonna get fired? I think the Miz should get fired. It's like, okay, those guys might get fired soon. We don't know what's gonna happen with the talent.
Hold on, set that aside because that's not what this is.
Right. The first people that are gonna get the axe is the office, because when you merge a company, two companies that do very similar things, okay, we have 2 accounting departments. We don't need 2 accounting departments. We have 2 marketing teams. We don't need 2 marketing teams. We have 2 legal teams. We don't need 2 legal teams. That's when a merger like this happens. This is where almost immediately you get that big giant hack, because it's like, we're not going to pay 2 sets of teams for how long are we going to pay 2 sets of teams? No, you're going to get this over with as quick as possible. And don't think that they already haven't had a list of people and had these conversations already, but now can officially do it now that they're a company.
And also, I will also add that while I don't like anyone to lose their job, okay, and nobody does, don't think for one second either that everybody in that office hasn't been preparing the resume since the news came down that this merger was coming.
Yeah, if they weren't, they should have been.
Okay. Exactly. They should have been. I mean, so, it's bad, obviously. You don't like to see it happen. But, certainly this is not something where they got this memo today and they were like, what?
Yeah, if you work in the corporate world and like this level of corporate world, like giant companies like this, if you know that your company is merging with another company, you should probably expect this and be happy if it doesn't happen, but expect like that. The pessimist in me would be like, well, I'm getting fucking fired then. All right, let's get all this ready. And if I don't get fired, then hey, great. Okay. That's a weight off my shoulders now. But I am going in the last couple of months. I have been well prepared that I'm probably going to get canned.
Yeah.
Which sucks, but that's what working in giant corporate America is. So I don't know. That's why I work for a company of 50 people. It's a lot easier to do that. So,
I mean, no one likes it. No one's rooting for it. It just is what it is. But I suppose more relevant to our audience would be, will there be talent cuts? And no one really knows the answer to that. We could only go by how this company has handled the UFC. And since they've been in control, they've kind of taken a, all right, let them walk kind of attitude when it comes to even people who were champions and stars. They seem to be willing to pay the tippy top stars, but anybody below that level, it's so if they handle the wrestling side the same as they've handled the UFC side, there will not be sort of this, impulse to retain all of your talent the way that the previous regime often did. But we don't know.
Right. I will say that this just came out a couple of minutes ago. Nick Hausman, House of Wrestling, says that he says, quote, House of Wrestling has been able to confirm the authenticity of the email, so the PW Insider email that we just wrote about, and that layoffs at the Stanford headquarters are expected tomorrow. Unfortunately, while inquiring about whether there would also be talent releases, we were told by a WWE source that, quote, major cuts are expected to the WWE main roster and the NXT brand. We were not explicitly told that the cuts would be coming tomorrow, but we're told that they have been planned for some time, which, I guess we all kind of knew that, but I guess
I mean, that's not a major surprise. I've been having a conversation with a wrestler and over the last couple of weeks, just talking about the future and where all these moving parts are going and what their future would look like and whatnot. And I'm like, and my advice has been, you have to let this merger happen and see how this all shakes out before you make any career decisions or anything, because this is going to change everything for everyone. If they go through and make massive talent cuts and then, and then from there, we have to see if this new company is aggressive in signing free agent talents. It could revert the pay scale again, because if this new company doesn't show interest in major pro wrestling free agents, right, and instead chooses to just use the Performance Center and NXT to sort of continue to develop new waves of television presentable stars and just do it that way because it's cheaper and more efficient. And I'm not even sure that is cheaper and more efficient to house 200 wrestlers in the Performance Center with a low success rate. First of all, many of them don't even make NXT. And then what percentage of the ones that make NXT make it to the main roster? And then what percentage of those people end up being money drawing stars?
Right.
It's like, you start with 200 people and you might end up with one or two that are useful by the end of that process. So I'm not, but that's a completely different discussion for another day. But we don't know how they're going to handle any of these things, and I guess when they do make their first wave of talent cuts, we'll see what type of talent they're prioritizing. Who are they going to cut? Are they going to cut, like typically the McMahons would cut from the bottom of the roster? Right. We kind of had a feel for who would go. It's like, oh God, who hasn't been on TV in 3 months? They're in danger. You know what I mean? And maybe this round of cuts will be that. Maybe what I just said is something. Maybe someone from TKO is looking at the way WWE does things, and they're saying, why are we paying 200 22-year-olds that are never going to make it? We need to, they might rip apart the whole fucking game plan. They might get rid of, so the cuts might come from the bottom.
Right, and it would be pretty justified, to be honest. We've talked about the Performance Center for a while, that if to the outside world, if you described what the Performance Center does and what it's, what the result of it has been, you would say, what are we doing? This is an insane amount of money that we're spending, and who do we have that, like, what is this, what have we gotten out of this? Like, it's, and people bring up like 6 people, they're like, oh yeah, but what about this person, and what about that person? It's like, they've housed 200 people in that $1 million facility for years, for a decade, and you're going to come up with the same 6 names over and over again? That's not good.
The same 6 names, and you can't even necessarily quantify any of them as legitimate draws.
Right.
like, okay, I like Bianca Belair as much as you do, and as much as all of our listeners do. Would this company be in any different position whatsoever if she never existed?
No.
And it's like, those are the kind of names that come up, and that's no disrespect to Bianca Belair, but what difference-making star have they?
I think it speaks to the fact that she's probably one of the best success stories of a off-the-street person, through college athletics that we brought in through the PC, that has then, risen to the ranks of being,
she's Exhibit A
of a very good person on our roster, and somebody that can main event a WrestleMania, all that sort of stuff. But she's the best example by far, and it's like, well, that's not good, because she, like you said, she is not a bona fide. I mean, this is supposed to be a star-making machine, and it kind of spits out a star or so, a star with like a lowercase s, like once every 5 years. That's not good. That's not.
Yeah,
so
some of that might even kind of be by design, because they want the brand to draw one. But look, here's the point. We don't know if they're going to cut from the bottom. We don't know if they're going to cut from the very bottom, meaning all the people in the PC. We don't know if they're going to cut from close to the top. What we do know is they're not going to cut the top. You're not going to see Roman Reigns or Seth Rollins or people like that. I'd be stunned, just fucking floored, because that doesn't even follow the UFC model. They keep the tippy top stars, but maybe they're going to cut from that next level. Maybe they're looking at the books and saying, do we really need The Miz and Dolph Ziggler making 7 figures when they contribute nothing? So maybe it'll be that level of person who goes, and that's kind of the level of UFC, athlete that they have kind of been nonplussed about when it came time to renew contracts. Those are the ones they let go to Bellator, like that kind of, level star. So I don't know. We have to see what type of cuts they make when they make the cuts. Do I think that their roster is bloated? It probably is. I mean, let's be honest. They have way too many people under contract. Yeah. I understand they have 3, 6 hours of TV and 6.5. You want to throw in Level Up, and I get all that, but look, we don't know how these people are going to look at things. And again, the McMahons are no longer, Vince McMahon is no longer technically, in control. He can be overruled now, and that's
going to be I have that on my notes.
Remember.
Is like, how is Vince going to handle him making a decision and being told no? Because that has never happened before. And when that did happen, the one time, basically, he threw a bunch of board members out, installed his, clown car of pawns, and then got his answer, got exactly what he wanted, back into power, basically got it. So the one time he was told no, he basically forced his way into everybody saying yes, eventually, for him coming back. So like, other than that, but like, this is now a real situation where he could be told no, and has really no leg to stand on if enough people in that room say no. And there's some powerful people in that room. There's a lot of big egos. Vince has always been big man on campus, old sweat, with the big chest and the McMahon walk and all that sort of stuff. Dude, you're in there with Dana White, with Ari Emanuel, with Nick Khan. Like, you're in there with some dogs, man. You know what I mean?
The UFC side, aren't ever going to get involved. But your point stands. Like the TKO, someone in the chat makes a great point. Vince already fired like a dozen of these people, and Levesque brought him back.
Right.
And not a single one of them's doing anything meaningful.
Oh, all of those guys are gone. Back. Yeah, that Infinity Stone is gone.
Yes, you'd have to think that there'd be, a lot of people that they view as being very easily expendable if there's going to be some talent cuts. If this Hausman, whoever he talked to, whoever his source was, is to be believed, and these cuts are coming. I don't know, just from a PR standpoint, if I were running things, I don't know if I'd want to cut 150 talents on the same day that I have a bloodletting in my office.
Right. You might want to space it out, but
wait a couple months. I don't know.
But we're big boy business now, man. We're corporate conglomerates at this point. You know what I mean? Like, I agree, but does it matter?
Yeah, really, it doesn't. I mean,
are they going to get $1 billion less in their TV deal because they did this? No.
They're not going to get a nickel less on their TV deal.
Because guess what they're going to say is, yeah, we fired 200 people, but guess what, TV executives? You know how you don't have any television shows right now because everybody's on strike? And you know how you had a pandemic and people went away? Well, guess who never takes a week off for a pandemic? Guess who never takes a week off because of a strike? Guess who can't have their talent take a strike? Both of our companies. So, hey.
And the investors aren't going to care.
No.
The investors aren't going to care.
Nobody's going to care, but public perception doesn't fucking matter for a conglomerate like this.
You're right. I mean, I was looking at the PR aspect of it, but maybe we do have a extremely newsworthy day from that standpoint.
They're a publicly traded company, that stock would go up if they said, hey, we've reduced costs by X million dollars. Yeah. That stock's going to go up because people are going to say, that's a lean operation. I like that. You know what I mean? Like, we're not talking about mom and pop business. This ain't a family business anymore. It's a conglomerate.
Yeah. Yeah. And, if they do cut talent, a lot of those people will land on their feet. There'll be an influx of talent onto the scene. You could be sure that AEW will be scraping through the pile to look for some useful parts. And then it goes down from there. New Japan, would get the next crack at them. And then you're talking about places like Impact and NWA and MLW and, Pro Wrestling Noah, and you go right down the line, and it would kind of restock the pond from that standpoint in terms of other promotions benefiting from any potential talent cuts that WWE makes. And I guess we cross that bridge when we get to it. I do think even before the Hausman report, I mean, you figured at some point that was going to come.
Oh, for sure. It feels like this company too, with the ability that they're going to have moving forward, especially financially, that they can probably let a lot of these people go and let them go do whatever they wanted to. Because if they ever do need to bring any of these people back or want to bring anybody back, they're going to be able to offer most likely more money than most people too. So it's like, you don't need to keep these people on your books and pay them every single month or whatever, pay them every single week to sit backstage and not do anything. But if you do want to bring a Dolph Ziggler back, like, it's not impossible to just say, hey, Dolph, we want you back. Here's X money. And he'll go, oh, okay, cool. Yeah. And he'll come back. You know what I mean? Like that to me, that's probably the strategy that I would employ if I was in charge of this company, is say, we can compete for all these people, financially, as long as they're not locked into contracts or locked into, X amount of year deals, we can let all these guys go, because you know what, if we do ever want any of these dudes, we can just call them back and they're probably going to come and work for us again anyway.
Yeah. And, Dakota Jones in the chat makes a great point. And I quote, Vince literally said previously, as a publicly traded company, he liked it because he could fire people for whatever reason. Didn't matter if they had kids or cancer.
Yep.
He said that. I believe that was on the McAfee.
Yep. And now he's even more insulated. That's when it was his company. Now it's not even quote unquote his company anymore.
Right. And, he said that partially in jest, but it was more of kind of a ribbing on the square kind of thing. Like he meant it.
Yeah, he meant it.
Also, so, I mean, you're right. I actually feel a little foolish for looking at it from a PR standpoint, because there's no need for PR, at that stage. So yeah, this is, You know, it's a whole new world. It's a whole new world, and we're gonna have to see how it shakes out. But a point that I never completely fully articulated was this could be bad for established free agent wrestlers now in terms of leverage if they do take on a model where they're not going to be in the market as aggressively for free agents as they were in the past, because then Tony Khan doesn't need to be as aggressive in keeping talent that he has where the clock is ticking on them. And Tony Khan doesn't have to be as aggressive in making offers to outside free agents that both sides are bidding for, whether it's a Will Ospreay coming up this winter, which, by the way, do not count out WWE when it comes. I know everyone seems to think Will Ospreay is just making a clean jump from New Japan to AEW, or he's using AEW for leverage and he wants to continue living part of the time in Japan. I'm telling you right now, do not discount WWE as a possibility for Will Ospreay. I meant to bring this up a couple of weeks ago. There's a lot of factors here at play, and I don't want to get too far off, and I promise I'm going to finish the point I've been trying to make for 10 minutes. But, you know, he's 30 years old now, okay? And we all know what happens sometimes when these guys hit 30 and they, you know, their creative juices aren't flowing as much, and they start looking at their bank accounts. And wrestling becomes less of an artistic endeavor and more of a, okay, how can I set myself up and my family for their future sort of endeavor. He apparently is madly in love with this new love of his life. He's taken on a stepchild. He's doing a lot of talking about making sure that that kid is taken care of. And I would not discount WWE. There's apparently a ton of chatter in the locker rooms over in Europe that, you know, this NXT or WWE Europe thing that they keep talking about, wanting to make Will Ospreay the centerpiece of it. And it would allow Will Ospreay to live at home with this new family of his and make top line money and be the centerpiece of whatever. That's in play. That absolutely is in play, you know, and he's been complimentary towards all the companies. He's been complimentary towards WWE.
Well, it'd be smart. That's smart business. That's smart business. Even if you in your head are 100% set on going somewhere, there's no point in saying I'm 100% on going somewhere. You got to take a meeting. You know what I mean? Like we always bring up, one of the great examples of that was Randy Orton on Twitter going to the Jaguar Stadium and posting a photo of him next to Tony Khan's office with a finger point at Tony Khan's faceplate or whatever, his nameplate in the office. Now, there was a 0% chance that Randy Orton was going to leave WWE, but you bet your ass that WWE said, shit, all right, fine, here's X amount more money. The guy made more money by doing that. That one photo, that one visit, I did talk to Tony Khan. All right, Randy, here you go. Here's everything you wanted. Fine. Like, you got to do that. Like, you have to do that. So if you're willing, you're 100% set on either party, whether it be 100% on AEW or whatever, you still have to entertain the idea of going to the other place too, to get that money, to leverage the most out of it. That's just smart business.
Absolutely.
That's what a healthy wrestling ecosystem is. Like, this is good. That's good for the wrestling business that you could do that.
And circling back, that could go away is my point.
Yeah.
That could go away if WWE becomes less aggressive for free agents. Tony Khan's not going to bid against himself. Okay. Now your tippy top free agents, there's still going to be, you know, obviously that's a different story, you know, but that next level down, he's not going to bid against himself. So, that was the point I attempted to start, that I started making 10 minutes ago, is we don't know that it could shake out to where that goes away too. It's sort of this fruitful period, you know, the Elite, their deals came up at just the right time, you know, and they apparently got these amazing deals, these life-changing deals, because Tony Khan absolutely could not afford to lose them right now, you know, to WWE. So he had to do whatever it took to keep them in the fold. And again, who knows if they were serious about leaving, but you had to take it seriously.
Yeah.
And you gotta pay them above and beyond to make sure that they stay. So, so we keep an eye on that too. I mean, you know, that's another factor. So,
what I think, you know, one more thing about TKO, and then we can kind of move on to other things is we're also in a weird thing where now UFC business very much affects WWE business. And there's a lot of positives to that. The positives are, and they've already been talking about them, they've been doing the media rounds everywhere and say, well, now we have entertainment weekends where, we can combine UFC and WWE, and instead of competing against each other, we can work with each other. So come to Las Vegas this weekend because on Saturday you got a UFC show and on Sunday you got a WWE pay-per-view or whatever it may be. You know what I mean? Like they can now work together in that sense. And cities can now bid to have, combat sports weekends where UFC comes into town and WWE comes into town. And then there was, a lot of talk about, well, WWE fans and UFC fans can be one and the same. And Dana White laughed that off. He was like, I don't think that's going to happen. But okay. So you had that, but they were talking a good game about that, of how, we're going to, the synergy between the two fan bases or whatever. But I will say, though, there's a negative aspect to that as well, that, UFC in April has a pretty big antitrust lawsuit that could come to a head about them and how they're paying fighters and how fighters are classified and all that sort of stuff. And stuff that goes wrong in UFC is going to affect WWE in a lot of ways. It's like they are no longer this kind of siloed business that they were for all these many years, where they were kind of able to do all their own thing and able to be, Mr. McMahon used to run, it was all going through him and he made all the decisions and everything that, the good and the bad and everything all came kind of through Vince McMahon. That is not the case anymore. Now it's like, some bad thing can happen in UFC and that's going to affect WWE. Some bad thing can happen in WWE and it affects UFC. Like it's an interesting spot that we're in, and I have no idea how it's going to shake out. I have no idea what's coming ahead or anything like that. But it's I don't know. To me, it's like it's fascinating that now there is the idea that some sort of controversy or a lawsuit in UFC can be have a huge negative effect on WWE, which just seems wild. But it's true that it's all under one thing, and some bad business move by one party can affect the other party. It's what we have here. These conglomerates, it doesn't always, the success rate for, these sort of things coming together is not always great. Big giant corporate mergers, the history, not super kind to a lot of those. So I think we have to, keep that in mind as well as we're looking at, oh man, like this is a perfect synergy of these two companies. People said that about every merger in history, and I've lived through several other ones as well. I've lived through obviously AOL Time Warner, the probably the worst merger of all time, like one of the most iconically awful mergers of all time. But there's several throughout my lifetime where it seemed like, oh man, this is a perfect, confluence of these two companies. And it ends up being, these two completely different companies can't work together, or something's wrong on this side and it tanks the other side, which tanks the whole company. Like, we got to also think of, this is good for a lot of reasons, but it could also be bad for a lot of reasons too. And it's different. It's just completely different than what this WWE business has been for its entire history, for all of our lifetimes. Completely different.
Yeah. So I don't know.
I don't know if it's AOL Time Warner. I don't know. We'll see. Not quite sure.
Tomorrow could be a very historical day.
Yeah.
For bad reasons. It could be a historically ugly day. When we might see a historical level of people lose their jobs, both behind the camera and in front of it. So we'll see.
Yeah, keep an eye out for that. So that is TKO Group Holdings. That is keep an eye on them, obviously, and then keep an eye on tomorrow. Presumed many office cuts, and then we don't know about the talent cuts probably coming very soon as well. But let's talk about WWE business itself this week. We'll start with Raw, which this week's Raw was the least watched episode of Raw in history. The only one worse, which doesn't really count, I don't think, was a non-live best of show on December 26th last year. So whatever caveat you want to put on it, this week's Raw was the worst ever, least watched live episode of Raw, first run episode of Raw, actual earnest episode of Raw, whatever you want to call it. The only other word worse, best of show, non-live on December 26th last year. So it had 1 million, that'd be real bad. 1,353,000 viewers on average. And then the 18 to 49 demo, a 0.40. That was down 21% week over week in total viewership and 22% in 18 to 49 viewership. From last week's 0.52. And obviously this was up against one of the most anticipated Monday Night Football games in quite some time, the Bills versus Jets, with Aaron Rodgers' Jet debut, which of course then got thrown in all different directions when he got hurt, 4 plays into the game, tore his Achilles. And then I think either if you weren't watching it, you probably then decided, shit, maybe I should go check this thing out and see what's going to happen here or whatever. So it delivered huge. It had 22.6 million viewers across ABC, ESPN, ESPN2, one of the most watched Monday Night Football games of all time as well. But with that said, like, yeah, football always comes. There's big games all the time. Yeah, Bills Jets was a big game. It still doesn't, football comes around every single year. It does not cloud the fact that this was the least watched episode of Raw in history, which I think is big news, even against that really monster NFL number, the Monday Night Football number.
Yeah, two things. Number one, yes, it was a monster football game, and I a lot of people were saying, when Rodgers got hurt, people tuned out. I disagree. I thought the game became more intriguing when Rodgers.
I'll tell you, there's one person who tuned in, me, because I was like, well, hold on a minute, what's going on here? When I heard that he was hurt, I was like, well, is he coming back? Is he out for the game? So I tuned in to kind of get the news. It was like you were watching the live news broadcast as well as the football game at the same time.
It was a cultural event,
right,
is what it was. It was this completely absurd, all of this built up hype for one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time switching teams. He gets hurt on the first series. That's something that I think helped the number, not hurt it. And then the game was close the rest of the way, and it was a story unfolding. Are the Jets somehow going to overcome this? And is Josh Allen going to continue to shit his own pants in front of the world and somehow lose this game for the Bills? So to me, it actually helped the number. It probably helped the number in my view. But that aside, that it was this monster, number that they did, that to me does not wipe away the fact that Raw did their lowest viewership total of all time on USA Network. Because look, if they would have done a bad number, if they would have done 1.5 million or something, or if they were down like an enormous chunk, then you could say, all right, it was the football game, but this was the worst number they've ever done.
Right.
I'm sorry, I can't hand wave that, because the
ever
football
is
game
ever
did a big number.
Ever is ever.
Ever is ever. And football comes every year, and they know when it's coming. And I'm sorry, and they tried to counter program it. They tried to counter program it with Jey Uso making his Raw debut, our humorous bit last week aside, and they tried to do some things to counter it. And Jey Uso made obviously no difference whatsoever. And they got fucking slaughtered. And here's point number two, why I think it's meaningful and there's something to look at here. In total viewership, through how many Mondays have there been in the month of September? Not too many. Two, yeah,
the 4th and the 11th.
This was now the 4th straight week that Raw was down year over year. They're down 13% in September in total viewership. They were down 16% in August in total viewership year over year. So there are trends at play here when it comes to Monday Night Raw that played out in conjunction with the debut of Monday Night Football and this Aaron Rodgers deal. Okay. They were down in August, 16%. They're down year to date now in September, 13%. They just did their lowest number ever. In 18 to 49 in August, they were down 4%. And in September now they're down 4% in 18 to 49. SmackDown so far in September, I think through 2 shows. Am I correct on that? Let me look at the calendar again. Yes, the 1st and the 8th. Through 2 shows, SmackDown is flat year over year. And SmackDown has been up double digits for fucking who knows how long.
Right. They've had great momentum. They've had great momentum until recently.
Until very recently. It started with Raw. It has now continued with SmackDown. There is a noticeable ratings decline that cannot just be hand-waved or blamed on the football game this week. And I got to tell you, I am taking this back to SummerSlam. I talked about it at the time. I genuinely feel like that main event with Jey Uso and Roman Reigns that got, the finish was when the most hardcore WWE fans are even saying, now, wait a minute, is this story going anywhere? I sensed a real turn with SummerSlam. I really did when it comes to the bloodline. And people kind of saying, yeah, this really just isn't going. Plus, Roman hasn't been around since then. The most hardcore, ardent WWE fans and pundits have even begun, at that point, began to question the storyline and whether there really was a master plan. They really dropped the ball that night, I think, and they lost a lot of people people that you never thought they could lose.
Well, you can only miss. They didn't strike when the iron was hot 3 times. It's like you only
How many chances you get to miss?
They're right. There felt like there had to be an expiration on that at some point.
Yeah. So, that's to me. I point at that. I think, that was the point where I think the bloodline. We're going to look back at that as the point of the bloodline where it was people finally. Now look, I think they know it too, which is why they are trying to kind of speed run. What's Finn Balor's
Judgment Day? Judgment Day.
They're trying to speed run Judgment Day into the mix now and kind of recreate it all over again, right? And I think they even recognize that the bloodline is kind of on the precipice maybe of an enormous crossroads. Okay. And, the ratings are starting to reflect that on both shows now. So, that's my take on the Raw rating. I think it's very easy to hand wave it based on the Monday night rating. And I would too, if it would just have been a run of the mill bad number or the run of the mill drop. This is the worst number of all time when we already had a month of year-over-year decline. That's the thing. So this just totally followed the trend of what we've been seeing since
right.
August.
I think a lot of people would be surprised by that if you said that, because people think of WWE as like this red hot, company. And for a while it was, but yeah, the year over year is not good. They're down year over year. And the trend, like you said, is, and you kind of laid out there. I think people would be surprised that year over year is, we're seeing a legit, you can go look at the graphs, you can look at it, and it is, year over year, they're down. They're not doing as good as they were doing last year, which seems wild because it does seem like a red hot company. And live attendance is fucking insane for them right now. They're doing a SmackDown this week in Denver. I noticed this when we were talking about WWE or AEW ticket sales, I should say. They're doing a SmackDown, I believe, in Denver this week that's got like 13,000 tickets out already for it. For a SmackDown. And AEW is like, yeah, we're going to present a pay-per-view from Seattle. It's like, yeah, we'll put 6,000 tickets on sale and see what happens. And they have like 4,000 tickets are sold right now, and they're only setting the building up for 6. And they got 13,000 for a SmackDown, for God's sakes, coming up in the next couple days. I mean, it's insane. So they are hot in a lot of ways, but those ratings, I mean, don't, it's not 100%. It's not red hot, molten hot, crazy hot like they were for quite a number of months. Year over year growth, live attendance growth, ratings bonanza, YouTube view, any metric you wanted to say, WWE was hot as hell. But
it was SmackDown more than Raw.
Right.
Okay. I'll give you Raw for the past year. We'll start with September 2022, and this is year over year. I'll give you the year over year total viewership.
Okay.
For Raw, starting with September 22 and right on through to September 23. Flat, down 8%, up 8%, up 4%, down 1%, up 8%, up 4%, down 4%, up 4%, and then the last 2 months that I outlined already, down 16%, and month to date September down 13%.
Yeah.
A SmackDown over that period, I'm not going to read all the numbers again like Mike Francesa, but essentially double digit up or close to it. All of those months. Up 11% in July, up 11% in August, and month to date with 2 shows in the books, SmackDown is now flat. Again, year over year. So you can't even just point to football or anything else because football's every year. So I don't know. I felt it that night when I saw some of the reactions to that SummerSlam main event angle and all of that. That some people finally just groaned and said, all right, this is just the same old shit over and over again. And there's nothing special about this that they're building to. They're just stringing us along until it fucking runs out of gas, which is exactly what they're doing. And like you said, missing several opportunities to really take it in another direction. It really hammers home. They really should have put that fucking title on Cody.
We'll say that till the end of time. I don't want to hear it. Even if he wins it at WrestleMania, I don't want to hear it. They had a golden. There's never They had it perfectly. The guy came back from injury, won the Royal Rumble. The story was that he was going to finish the story. The Usos were fracturing. The Bloodline was fracturing. Everything was perfect for Cody to just fucking win that thing. The Bloodline story is the same Bloodline story without the title. Cody and Brock is better with the title. Everything is better if Cody wins that title. I am still to this day, and we came on the air immediately afterwards and just laughed for like 10 minutes because it's like...
And you could have done everything you've done since with the Bloodline.
Yep.
And none of their fans would have given, because the title doesn't really mean anything to it. The title is the tribal chief. That's the fucking title. Who's the tribal chief? Tribal combat. That's what matters to these fans. And Cody feels like he has cooled off since then.
He does.
And maybe if you would have put the title on Cody and had built, and then you wouldn't have had to create the fake title that Seth won. You wouldn't even had to have that, which I think is a net negative. Okay, that thing is a net negative. And I'm not saying that Cody as champion would have remained as hot as he was going in. I think there's a good chance he would have, though, because people wanted that. People wanted Cody to win that match. And then maybe that Brock feud is even hotter than it was because it's for the title. And maybe, I don't even know what the fuck he's doing now. Besides bringing Jey Uso to Raw, the guy who screwed him for the title, I don't even know what Cody's point. Like, maybe he could have helped keep things hot while the Bloodline cooled off.
Right.
If he were champion. And instead, you kept the titles on Roman. He isn't even around.
He's not even there.
He's home playing with his kids and counting his money. Good for him.
Great gig if you can get it. Great gig if you can get it.
Yes. And he got it. He got the gig. Okay? He's home playing with his kids and fucking his wife and living the life. And, you know, the Bloodline's dying on the fucking vine. Cody feels cold as ice, and they're trying to...
Yeah, Cody just comes out occasionally. If you haven't watched him lately, he just like kind of comes out, and people are like, "Yeah, Cody," and he just like leaves. You know what I mean? It's strange. It's weird. I know he's doing
out in his suit.
Yeah.
The fans go,
dun, dun,
"Whoa!"
Dun, dun.
You know?
yeah, people make noises.
They do the sing along.
Yeah.
Whoa! You know, because that whole fucking show is nothing but a sing along.
It's a sing along. Yeah, sometimes he does stuff with like the Judgment Day. He's sort of kind of in the Judgment Day universe at this point, and then he, you know,
is he?
Sort of. Yeah, he's kind of.
I don't know what he's doing. He brought Jey Uso to Raw when he should want Jey Uso dead. Like, why would he be happy about that? Anyway, it would have been. I think it would have been benefit. Now you don't know. You know, maybe he wins the title and then people are over him because it's like, all right, well, we told his story. I don't know, but I don't think anything fundamentally would have changed with the Bloodline. I really feel like that was a mistake. And then, you know, the Bloodline still remains hot after that. But that SummerSlam, that they lost a lot of people with that. And at least with the television ratings, year over year, it's starting to reflect. So, you know, we see. And, you know, NXT, obviously, Becky Lynch. Maybe it is big time Bex, huh? What a
ratings Rebecca here is what I think that's what she said on Twitter. One of their best ratings ever was watched by 850,000 people on average on a 0.26 in the 18 to 49 demo. That is their highest overall viewership since October 20th, 2020, and the highest 18 to 49 since September 1st, 2020. That's up 26% compared to last week's total viewership number, and up 46% in 18 to 49. They almost doubled their 18 to 49 viewership week over week. And I believe it was over 1 million people watching the match as they did the overrun with Becky and Stratton there. So just wild stuff. And their trends, NXT's trends, are huge up year over year. 49% growth in the 18 to 49 in August. In July, 32% in August, and now 43% so far in September.
Yeah, and you could even go back further than that. You know, really starting with last April, it's been all double-digit growth in 18 to 49, 14%, 23%, 30%. You gave the other numbers. NXT has really done a great job capturing the 18 to 49. Now, I do think some of what's happening with NXT is smoke and mirrors in that they are utilizing a lot of main roster talent. We've talked about this. And then when the main roster talent goes away, the numbers kind of normalize again. So it's not as if it's creating people who stick around and, you know, then they bring the main roster talent back like they did this week. I think the overrun of Becky's match did well over 1 million viewers, which and NXT put up a number which, that 850,000.26. I mean, you're talking low level Dynamite range. I mean, they had an outside shot of beating Dynamite in total viewership. Demo was going to be a challenge because Dynamite's been around 0.3 lately, but 0.26 wasn't, a bad Dynamite can do a 0.26. I mean, that's not impossible. And a lot of the down card demos, they had a real good chance of catching. Now AEW ended up doing a really good number. You have the AEW number in front of you?
I don't, but I can get it.
Dynamite
so let me get it up.
Yeah, now Dynamite ended up doing, I think, 880,000 and a 0.31 or a 0.32. Rich will have it in a second.
Yeah, let me
the
get
exact number. So
one moment.
So Dynamite did hold off NXT from that standpoint, but NXT made it. When that number came out, it was like, all right, this is going to be uncomfortably close for Dynamite this week.
888,000 viewers, 0.31 in the 18 to 49.
Okay, so and I'm sure I haven't seen all of the down card demos, but I'm sure they held them off and most, if not all of them as well. But look, they're going head to head in a couple weeks. They are, and I don't know if a lot of people realize that.
October 10th, I believe, is the date, right?
Yeah, there's some shit moving around, some moving parts with some baseball playoffs, I think, and whatnot, because it's Dynamite moving days, right? Not NXT. It's Dynamite moving to Tuesday.
Right.
And so they're going head to head on Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesday, October 10th. Yeah, that is the date that they're doing head to head. Because baseball playoffs are happening, so they're moving Dynamite to a Tuesday, going head to head with NXT, October 10th.
I had somebody send me this. They don't want to be named, but they made a pretty compelling. This is kind of off the beaten path, but I thought it was interesting, and I want your take on this. Okay. Someone in and around the business sent me this and asked to please remain anonymous. So this person says that this is all going to make sense. So stick with me. This person says they understood Mox over Orange Cassidy at All Out. Okay. But the gist of it is, it's Mox, but in thinking about it, maybe it would have been better to have Orange Cassidy win that match, really cement him as a top guy by beating Mox completely against the odds with his body broken down and all of that. And maybe that would have been a chance to really make Orange Cassidy, if he wins that match. And you probably don't know where this is going, and I didn't either, but then you look, Orange Cassidy's title reign at that point was at 326 days, right? He won the belt on October 12th, 2022. If he would have beaten Mox, AEW could have built up to another big challenger, take your pick a top guy, to face Orange Cassidy on the Dynamite that comes right before Orange Cassidy reaches 1 year, which would have been October 10th, the night that AEW goes head to head with NXT. So that's actually a really good thought. Like, they could have had Orange Cassidy beat Mox and then spend a month and a half or whatever it is building up another main event challenger for him, with the idea of being, can he survive again and hold this title for a year? And you had the perfect time to peak it when you're going to be in this, both shows are going to be all loaded up trying to beat each other on the 10th. So I thought it was an interesting thought. Like, what do you think about that booking?
Yeah, I don't hate it. I don't hate it because Mox can eat that loss. That's not that big of a deal. It does seem the problem with a lot of the stuff going on in AEW right now is that you're building so many things that, to me, it seems impossible the way that company is booked and the way that company is thought. And honestly, what they have ahead of them, that you are now talking about, okay, we need to book 6 major shows ahead of time at this point. Because you're saying, all right, we got to think ahead to All Out, where Cassidy is going to win, and then we got to think about what he's going to do at Grand Slam, and then we got to think about what he's doing at Wrestle Dream, and then we can think about what he's going to do. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many shows and so many big shows that they're trying to build at the same time that I don't think it's a bad idea, but I also think that maybe you would have to. I don't know. I wonder if it would feel too Like like maybe they didn't choose the right time. Like All Out felt like the right time, honestly. All Out felt like the culmination of a very good run for Cassidy. He was breaking down little by little. I do wonder if it maybe would have gotten a little more long in the tooth if we had another month of it going on. Like I don't think it's a bad idea, but I think it's easier said than done, especially with 4 major shows all in front of this October 10th show.
Well, listen, if you're going to book 4 major shows in that short period of time, shouldn't you have a plan for all of them?
Joe, I agree. Stop yelling at me. I agree. Yes.
So let's set this Orange Cassidy deal and peaking it for October 10th aside. Isn't this the kind of thinking they need to have in that room?
Absolutely.
Even if you don't love this idea in particular.
No, I like that idea. The problem is I can't wrap my head around this company doing that idea right now because you have to think 4, 5, 6 steps ahead of times. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like I can't even wrap my head around them thinking at All In, okay, well, we're going to have Cassidy do this, and then 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 it's going to lead to October 10th or whatever. You know what I mean? Like that.
Let me ask you this. Would you be skeptical that the company can think like chess instead of checkers if I had proposed this in 2020?
Oh, they absolutely would. Yeah, no, for sure they would have done something like this.
You wouldn't have questioned it.
No,
you would have said,
absolutely. Yeah.
It kind of speaks to the idea. Now I will say this, and I said this behind the paywall today. I do think the booking in AEW has been way more focused coming out of the 2
yeah. After All Out, things have felt a lot better booking wise.
Yeah. So, we do have to say that, but I didn't want to take this ratings talk completely off the track, but that was something that I thought of that played into, the head-to-head that we're going to have on the 10th, which, both sides are going to downplay that, but they both want to kick the other side's ass. That
right. And NXT will try like hell. I don't know. I don't know if AEW is going to try. I don't know. I would assume they would, but again, they have 5 other giant shows to book before that. I know NXT is going to try. There's no reason not to.
I know this sounds defeatist. If I'm Khan, I might punt it. I'm going to tell you why. If WWE wants to, they'll win that night.
Yeah, of course.
If they want to win that
they'll
night,
put Roman on there or something. Roman Reigns returns to NXT. Cody Rhodes.
Bloodline shit.
Cody Rhodes versus, insert whoever. Yeah. There's ways. They could just have guys show up. You know what I mean? They just have Roman Reigns is going to talk. Jey Uso and Cody Rhodes are going to face, this tag team or whatever. Like they can very easily win that night if they want to. Whereas I think AEW
want to win that night, they'll win that night.
And that's kind of the point I was going to bring up about the Orange Cassidy thing is like, I don't know if I care that much about that night. Like, should they? Maybe. Will they? I don't know. But I feel like that, you're leveraging a lot of stuff. You're changing a lot of stuff that right now you're taking away all these Moxley things. You're taking away what you had kind of built that story for of Cassidy finally. And you're doing all that and you're having it live through, 4 different big shows and 2 pay-per-views and all that sort of stuff, all so that you could, face these guys on NXT on October 10th. Like, that feels defeatist in a lot of ways. That feels like you're punching down a little bit. I would just say, you know what, do our show. If it happens, fine, whatever. They're going to try like hell to beat us. Maybe they will beat us, whatever. Who cares? Go on your, I wouldn't worry about it.
I don't even know if WWE has to fully empty the tank to win that night. I mean, I don't think they could do a run-of-the-mill NXT. A run-of-the-mill NXT will lose. And lose
no. It has to have 1 or 2 main roster people and one big match.
But they don't even have to empty the fucking barrel. To win that night. Not so. I don't know. It's I thought it was interesting though. So I didn't want to take us off track of the ratings though. But yeah, that's kind of been the NXT model. Pump it up. But look, they have a TV deal coming up too. So they want all of these ratings to look as good as possible, and they've really done a great job, fluffing up those NXT numbers. Now,
and I'm going to give them a little bit of credit too, because when they broke down NXT, when they came in and made the Rainbow Raw, we called it, and got rid of all the older guys and got rid of anybody that wasn't really drawing much money. Some of those people are main eventing AEW right now. That they got rid of those dudes and said, we don't need these. We're gonna build this whole thing back up and bring it down to the studs and build it up or whatever. And it was rough. It was really rough for a lot of times. A lot of these people were way in over their heads, but I will give them credit that a few of these people, Stratton is a great example, who was one of those people that was like thrown out on TV and it's like, fucking learn. I don't know, figure it out. And it's like, you can't really, you're raw as hell, but you know what? We're going to see what happens. We'll throw you out there, see what happens. And a little over time now, they've kind of rebuilt this where some of those people that they kept on there and said, hey, you're going to learn on the job, are getting better. They're progressing. They're feeling like, there might be a thing that some of these people now, Stratton being probably the biggest, is feels like she could potentially be something in that company. And that was again, one of those people that they just threw out there and said, fucking figure it out. You'll do it. But now they're also integrating a little bit more of the workers. You have Ilya Dragunov there a little bit, with post NXT UK, you're able to put some of the workers on there. Then you sprinkle in some of the main roster people. And I think that they've done a pretty good job. Like, I don't like it. I think the show fucking sucks, but I understand its appeal to people. And I do think that they have done a good job of building that thing back up to a show that has stuff that, it's got young stars, it's got current stars, it's got some decent wrestling, it's got the fucking god-awful worst skits you'll ever see. I think the booking is atrocious, but I get why it's popular. I get why it's coming back. I get why people have started to kind of invest in it a little bit. And they took a lot of risks. They took a lot of risks basically stripping it to the studs and saying, fuck it. We're going to get rid of all these guys. Adam Cole, Roger Strong, Kyle O'Reilly, all these, go away. You know what I mean? Samoa Joe, hit the bricks. We don't need any of you guys anymore. You were losing anyway. What's the point? And they're not hitting on 100% success rate with the young guys.
They don't do good numbers unless they bring in stars, though. That's the thing.
Well, but you need to, if you want to get those, like, do you think that Tiffany Stratton is better off this week than she was last week?
Well, of course.
Well, that's so you get people ready to a point where they can now get that rub from a main roster person, which I think Tiffany Stratton absolutely got from Becky Lynch this last week. Now, I don't know if that means that 400,000 people are going to start buying, or watching the show every single week that weren't going to watch it before, because Tiffany Stratton's on there. But I think that little by little, you are going to get more people that say, you know what? This isn't bad. And maybe I will check this out a little bit.
One other thing I'll disagree strongly on is I don't understand why people like it. I think it's atrocious in every way. I don't just think it's a bad wrestling show. I think it's like the worst thing on TV. I think NXT is just...
The skits are deplorable.
I don't have words to describe how bad I think that show is. I think that show is so bad that when I watch it, I get angry. I get angry at how bad that show is. It is awful in every way. I hate that fucking show. I think it's like the worst thing on television, period. It is so bad. I know sometimes I go too far, but I have to question people who enjoy it. I have to question you. It's so bad, I have to question you. So I do disagree. I don't know why people like it. I don't understand at all why people enjoy that show. So I will disagree with you there. But as far as Tiffany Stratton goes, she is a blue chip A++ prospect. There's no question about that. She can be an enormous star in pro wrestling. I don't know that it's a lock or that she's going to be, but she's absolutely an A++ blue chip, however you want to define it, prospect in pro wrestling. So that and I think getting the old Becky Lynch rub like you just talked about was very smart from that standpoint. And I think that she has said many times that she feels like she's not ready for the main roster, and I like hearing stuff like that from people. She recognizes that it would be a rush job at this point to put. When you look at NXT's 18 to 34 year over years, I mean, that's who's watching this show.
Right.
We talked about the 18 to 49, but you look at the younger half of the 18 to 49. Let me read people some numbers, and I'm going to start with February 2023, year over year. This is 18 to 34, and these are all up, obviously. 46%, 79%, 37%, 81%, 92%, 57%, 79%, and 62% up in 18 to 34. Remember when this was a show that only old people watched?
Yeah, we laughed about it.
That is not the case anymore.
No, exactly.
So all of these really bad skits and the presentation of the wrestlers, they all have their own little fucking their own individual crayons when they come out with their own fonts, and these god awful promos and sketches and this the presentation of the show, and it obviously appeals to younger people for some reason that I cannot put my finger on. Because the numbers are not lying. The year-over-year increases are enormous. So I understand, like you say, you understand what people like about it. So what do you think it is? I mean, is it tapping into young culture in some way? Like what?
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably not the best person to talk about it, but I think the very bright colors, the over the top characters, the stuff that I fucking cannot stand, I think a lot of people like. I think there's a lot of very attractive people on that show that was clearly something that they wanted to do when they stripped down NXT and said, we're going, Rainbow Raw type of thing. We're going with the, NXT 2.0 or whatever. It was clear that, hey, if you're hot, particularly if you're a hot woman, you are going to get pushed very highly on that. So I think that plays a big part in it as well. And I think, yeah, it's like it feels like a teenage show in a lot of ways. It's like super weirdly attractive people, like not like they're weirdly attractive. You know what I mean? Like where you're like, I guess that person's good looking. I don't know if I like that person. Like even a Tiffany Stratton, who I know a lot of people are like, oh my God, I does nothing for me whatsoever, but I get why she's like traditionally hot. You know what I mean? Like I think
conventionally attractive.
Yeah, like a conventionally attractive person. I wouldn't, if you were like Tiffany Stratton's hot, I'm not gonna be like, I don't think so. I'm like, yeah, all right, it doesn't work for me. But I get it. I understand it. Conventionally attractive people. So I think that show is filled with conventionally attractive people, bright lights, over the top characters. I don't know. I don't. There's something there. There's clearly is something there that's getting these people to want to watch it. And yeah, it's got to be something like that, because I look at the show and I hate everything about it, but I think there's enough there with attractive people and over the top characters and a lot of yelling and colors and lights and stuff. I think it's clearly working. I mean, look at those numbers. It's working.
Well, the younger half of the 18 to 49 is carrying it because when you look at those numbers, obviously they're not up nearly to that extent. 35 to 49, and I think the show is down 50 plus, and outside of 18 to 49 period. So kids and olds, I think the show is actually down a lot of these months. So the show annoys a lot of people and has run them off. It is like, because the total viewership isn't really any different than it used to be. It's just different people watching.
Right.
It is the simplest way to put it. And you'd rather have younger people watching for a million different reasons, not even just for television reasons, but for pro wrestling reasons. You'd rather make a lifetime fan out of a 22-year-old than a 52-year-old. Because you're going to get 60 years of everyone. It's obvious what I'm saying here. So, right. So that's kind of. But again, I that's why you can't chalk all of it up to here's a main roster star this week, because the long-term trends with the younger end of that.
Right. That's getting to the next level. That's kicking them into another gear, but they're doing well without those people. They're increasing with that. Those people are now kicking it into an, oh my God, this is a number to take notice of. There was that Seth Rollins number a couple of months ago where it was like, whoa, hold on a minute. That's a pretty big number they got there. And now there's this Becky number. When that came around, people were floored. People were like, holy shit. Like there was that real conversation that like, oh my God, they might, I mean, it's unlikely that they're going to do it, but there's a non-zero chance that they could beat NXT or AEW in the demo this week from that, Becky Lynch, Tiffany Stratton rating. And obviously it did not happen, and they were still,
and it didn't happen.
They were still pretty far away, but like, it was like for the first time in a very, very, very long time, it was like, oh my God, they might kind of, sort of, they're in the same universe. And it did not feel like that 2 years ago, a year ago. It did not feel like NXT had any chance of being in the same universe. So much so that this company said, this thing is fucking failing and we have to stop or whatever we were doing because it's just not worth it. They did that. 2 years ago, they said, this shit sucks. We're getting destroyed. We got to change things. And I don't know if it's 100% because of that. I don't know if it's because of I don't know what it is exactly, but it's clear the numbers are showing that whatever they're doing is working to some degree. And yeah, October 10th will be the next time we can see it working.
Now, to be fair, this show still doesn't do huge numbers. It has year-over-year growth, but this is still a show when there's no main roster talent and it's a run-of-the-mill show. You're still looking at, 680,000 people in a fucking 0.17 being like a common number. And a lot of this year-over-year growth is kind of a bounce back, if you want to look at it that way, Because if you look at like 2021 and 2022, here, I'll give you starting with October 2021, and I'll give you about a year's worth of 18 to 49 growth. Down 18%, down 11%, down 21%, down 17%, down 18%, down 19%, down 42%, down 20%, down 20%, down 31%. So they were siphoning young viewers all throughout 2022. And then in 2023, it's kind of like they're just getting them all back,
right.
Which is why when you look at NXT's total viewership and demo, it's like the same as it's like always been. They just, you know what I mean? It's like they lost them and then got them back. And now they're losing all of the over 50s that they used to dominate with. This show used to crush it with over 50s. The over 50s are like, I don't know what the fuck this is. This sucks.
Right.
This isn't wrestling anymore. And I don't like it. It's scary and I don't want to watch it. Right. And now like all these 20-year-olds have replaced them, which again is a trade that they'll take. But it's why on a run of the mill week, they're still not doing, monster numbers. And remember, this 18 to 34 half of the demo, this is in totality, this isn't like a massive number of viewers that we're talking. So, but listen, kind of wrap this up. This is why I've been like doom speaking the future of wrestling, because this is what's appealing to younger wrestling fans. This shit that they put on TV on Tuesday nights, for whatever reason, there is a certain segment of younger fans who enjoy this. And I think there are a lot of the same people who have enjoyed the Bloodline. There are a lot of the same people who are into this brochacho fucking bullshit. And that is why I doom speak the future of wrestling. Because I think the people that run wrestling, they see the same numbers we see. And they see what connects with younger viewers. And they're going to continue doing what appeals to younger viewers. And unfortunately, what appeals to younger wrestling fans right now is this kind of hokey bullshit. And that's why I'm so down on the future of American TV wrestling. So, anyway, that's where I'm at.
So you go. That is the NXT number, the Raw number. Let's get into a little bit of, actually, let's do this, and then we'll talk about the AEW ticket sales here. We'll break up the business talk for a second here. To talk about the rumors about Jade Cargill and Edge. So you have Jade Cargill, Fightful Select, reporting last night that Cargill is expected to be leaving AEW and is expected to sign with WWE. You talked about this a lot on the Thursday Dynamite reviews, patreon.com/voices of wrestling, voicesofwrestling.com/Patreon, or flagship patreon.com. A little bit about how this may be the best thing for both parties involved and how it's not a big loss for AEW, which I agree, to an extent. So I don't know how much deeper you want to go, because I know you already went like 20, 30 minutes on the Jade Cargill thing or whatever, but I don't know, quickly, like your initial thoughts when you saw that, hey, she is expected to be finishing up with AEW and expected to sign with WWE. That was corroborated by Dave Meltzer later. I know a few other reports. I think Raj Giri had a report that like, I don't know, I'm hearing that that's not going to happen. But I don't know. I'm going to go with Fightful and Dave over Raj on this one here. But what was your initial thoughts? And then I can kind of give my thoughts there, because if people want extended thoughts, you went about, like I said, 20, 30 minutes about Jade Cargill and her, her career in AEW, what this means, and why it's probably not as big of a deal, or as because some people are treating this like this is the end of the world and oh my god, here we go again, and all that sort of stuff. And I'm going to get to that in a little bit, but your initial thoughts about Cargill leaving AEW to go potentially to WWE.
I think it's, as I said, I think it's probably best for all parties involved. That being Jade, that being AEW, and that being WWE. I think she has far more upside in WWE. Far more upside.
I agree, 100%.
I think that AEW has done everything that they can do with her. They have done the best job that they could possibly do hiding her flaws, and her flaws are numerous, because she is not a good wrestler. And in a company where the in-ring quality is more important than it is in WWE, she actually stands out even more for not being good at this. In nearly every match that she's ever had on pay-per-view or television, she's been in the worst match on the show. I mean, she's just not good. And there's only so much you can do to hide that. I've been out on Jade for a long time.
Right.
I mean, before the hiatus, I've been out on Jade. I just, and I used to come up with various different ideas and plans on how you can maybe help her improve, but I just don't see it. She's 31 years old. She very clearly is not the nimblest of athletes. She's not a good athlete in the pro wrestling sense. I understand she's a fitness model and all that, but there's a lot of great athletes historically who just weren't great at the things that you have to be great at in pro wrestling. And she is someone who's just very obviously not a great athlete in a pro wrestling ring. She has 2 left feet. And I just think at her age, there's just not a lot of room. The ceiling has been close to hit.
Right.
And really, with someone like her, the most you can do is to continue to mask the flaws the best you can. And she's always going to stand out as being bad in AEW because this is a company that routinely has historically great pay-per-view shows, and she is always the lowlight on any pay-per-view that she's on. And because of that, there's a ceiling on how big of a star she can be there because the fans are not going to accept her as a tippy-top money-drawing star if the best she can do is a 1.5-star, 8-minute match. And that's really all you can get out of her. And, they booked her as a dominant champion who'd never sold because they had to. And, for 2 reasons. Number one, they had to hide all of her flaws. And number 2, because that was the best way to get her over. And they did get her over to the point where she could pop some quarter hours. I think people greatly overrate her star power. I mean, did she move some quarter hours? Did some quarter hours hold up? Sure. But, I could go back and show you she was on every Battle of the Belts. She was on Rampage a million times and did nothing for ratings. So I can counter all of the quarters that she popped with times that she meant nothing. So was she a nice little ratings mover? Yes. Does she have charisma and presence and star and like star exude star for days? Yes.
Yeah. Airport. She passes the airport test for sure. All that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Absolutely. Looks like a fucking super. Absolutely. But do I also think that she has been essentially maxed out in that particular company? Look, people fit better in different places.
Right.
And I think that WWE can maximize her far better than AEW can because it's a different kind of company where the fans accept different things. Here's the other thing. She's not a good promo. And in AEW, it's very hard. If you're not a good promo and you're a terrible wrestler, I'm amazed she got as far as she did in AEW, to be completely honest with you. I mean, she's not a good promo either. And they even hid her weaknesses there by trying to give her Stokely. That didn't work out. So they gave her Mark Sterling to do her talking. And when they let her talk, they just let her do what she's good at, being cocky for about 30 seconds. Because that's all she can handle. She could be cocky for 30 seconds and it comes across great. But in AEW, at some point, you got to stand in a ring in front of 10,000, well, these days, in front of 2,000 people, and you got to be able to talk for 7 minutes and then go toe-to-toe with somebody. You got to go toe-to-toe with fucking MJF for 11 minutes. Good luck. That's the kind of company it is. It's dog eat dog. Does anyone listening think that Jade Cargill was prepared to stand in a ring with a microphone and be a true top girl or top guy, whatever you want to call it, in that company and cut an AEW caliber top guy promo? Because I don't buy it.
No.
And we all know the work was never going to be there. So that's why I say this is, I believe, best for all parties involved. Why pay her when you've already maxed her out? There's not much more you can get out of her. You've squeezed everything you could. And there's a good chance she's going to go to WWE and become a massive star.
Absolutely.
You just have to accept that. You just got to accept that. And I think she probably realizes she's got a better opportunity to become a bigger star in WWE. If she's paying attention, she would understand that.
Absolutely.
Because to me, I think it's obvious. Anyway, Rich, I talked behind the paywall on this. Let people know what you think about this.
So I have 2 things. I largely agree with you. My first thing is, you say she's a better fit in WWE, and I absolutely agree. 100% agree. And I think it speaks to now, as we're approaching yet another year of AEW and we're seeing what what their company is and what their infrastructure is and stuff, I do think that maybe they don't have the infrastructure in place right now, and maybe never will, to have people like Jade get better on their watch. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think somebody like a Jade can get better doing the things that they do the way that they do it. Now, we talked for years about how we would have Jade do dark matches. We would have Jade go on the road whenever you can. We would have had Jade do an excursion if you needed to, but I really don't think you had to do that. I think, honestly, you just need to give her ring time. They don't have the infrastructure for that, or they didn't think they could do that. They didn't think that they could give her dark matches. They didn't have enough house shows for her to work. So essentially, they put her in the 6-minute, 2-minute, 3-minute squash matches week in, week out for years, and then that's it. And that was all that she had to really kind of get better or get that ring training or do all those sort of things. And you're probably not going to get an improvement. Now, would she have improved dramatically by doing 15-minute dark matches with, Emi Sakura every single week on the road? I don't know. Maybe, but we don't know. Like we know that she didn't improve doing 2-minute, 3-minute, 4-minute, 5-minute squash matches. Very few wrestlers would improve just doing squash matches over and over again. And then when they started rolling out the house shows, it was like, all right, well, here we go. Now here's an opportunity to have Jay do that. And then they really didn't take advantage of that and do anything more with her. So it was like, okay, either they don't think that she's going to get any better, they don't think that they can have those sort of matches on their house shows or dark matches or whatever. Okay, then they don't have the ability to get somebody who's still a little rough around the edges, not quite there. They don't have the ability to get that person to that next level and say, okay, let's find out if this person can actually go to a certain level or it can get better or can improve on our watch. They can't do that. Now, WWE, they have the ability to do that a little bit more. They have a performance center. They have 6.5 hours of television. They have tons of house shows, and they're not afraid to put people out there and just say, hey, wrestle for 15 minutes and figure it out. Or have her sit in the PC for 3 months and say, all right, here you go. Boom, boom, boom. We want to get you to work to our level. Like you said, there's also standards as well. The WWE working standard is far less than the AEW working standard, but I do still think that we're talking about a little bit of an infrastructure problem too in AEW, because I don't know that like Anna Jay has improved at all that much. Tay Conti had hit a ceiling and wasn't improving that much more either. There's a lot of men's wrestlers that like had never seemed to have gotten any better. So it does feel like AEW is a company that if you're not already great going into it or not already really good going into it, you're probably not going to get better because they just don't have that's just not a company where you get better in the ring because you're probably not going to get that much ring time or you're not going to have chances to kind of work stuff out, or you don't have house shows, you don't have dark matches, you don't have that sort of stuff. You have Rampage and you have Collision, but everything's on television. Everything is televised. And we've seen that AEW is a little scared to book things on television a lot of times, whether it be they want to protect the talent or whatever. So again, I don't know. We're at a point where Jade has now reached again. She reached her ceiling in AEW. You're not wrong about that. She absolutely 100% reached her ceiling in AEW. Was probably not financially worth it for them anymore to continue to invest in her and invest time and energy and money into her. So I get it totally. And WWE will probably do a better job with her. And she might, like, again, in a year's time, she might be the biggest star in the company. And we'll say, yeah, all right, well, we were on the show and we said, yeah, she might be the biggest star in WWE at some point because they have the infrastructure and they seem to have the ability to get somebody of Jade's level either slightly better or just say, you know what, whatever you have, we're going to work around that. We can do that. AEW doesn't have the infrastructure right now. They don't want to do that. They don't have the ability to do it. I don't know what it is, but it's strange. It leads to a very interesting question about talent development in AEW, where that next generation of talent is coming. When Danielson starts to slow down a little bit, if guys get hurt or is there a next wave in AEW? Is there a next group of people that are coming up and moving up the ladder and you're saying, all right, here we go, because it's not coming from the indies, we'll tell you that. I mean, I think the American indies are better than they were a couple years ago. I think they're getting there's a lot of really good talent on there, but we're not ready yet where Bryan Danielson can leave and you're like, all right, that's cool because we got this guy or we got this person, we have that, like I don't want to make this too much of an overarching like globalized thing or whatever, but I do think that the Jade reaching her ceiling in AEW does maybe speak to a little bit more of AEW issues of where's that next generation of talent coming? Who is getting better in AEW? Who is improving on their television? Or is it just guys have to come in and be good, or guys have to already be good and just be given a chance to really prove that they're good? But I don't see a whole lot of people getting better in AEW. I don't know. Do you have this similar thought as well as you look up and down the roster?
Well, one thing you said that stood out to me in WWE, it's not even necessarily, I think, their infrastructure and their ability to be able to spend more time helping someone get better. I personally don't think she's going to get much better. I think she is what she is. I've seen enough to form that opinion.
I think they can do a much better job of accentuating what she does well and saying, and packaging her in a way that could work a little bit better.
That's the key, because I think WWE fans, different things get you over in that company, where her work was always going to hold her back in AEW because she simply is going to look bad in comparison to everything else happening on these shows where you're having all these great matches and everything, and fans who are there to see great matches more than there to see. And WWE fans are there to see the presentation and to see the total package and to see the entrance and to see what, right down to what the wrestlers are wearing. That their fans are into that shit. And more so than AEW fan. And I think that WWE would do a better job in presenting Jade Cargill in a way that would connect with their fan base in a way that AEW has barriers in doing that, because she's always going to be held back by the fact that she cannot promo and she cannot wrestle. Where in a WWE, you can get around that with her presentation and get her over in other ways. And then her amazing presence and charisma and star power are able to come through. So that's why I think if she does end up going, it's good for WWE, it's good for her, and it's good for AEW. There's nothing left for them to do with her.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure she wasn't coming cheap. And I saw Sean Ross Sapp allude to possibly an option being in play. He said he wasn't sure whether it was a wrestler option or or the company option. A lot of Tony Khan's contracts have company options in them. Okay, I could rattle off a bunch if you want me to, and that I am 100% privy to that have company options in them. Tony structures his contracts that way a lot like he structures his sports contracts. Right. He comes from the sports world. And that's very common in sports to have team options is what they're called. Tony has team options on a lot of his contracts. Now, this is conjecture and I know nothing. I asked around and got stonewalled. I don't know a fucking thing about this Jade situation, okay? This is a 1,000% conjecture on my part. I would not be surprised if Tony Khan had an option and declined it and let her go. Because he may see it the same way that I see it. What else can I do with this person? Why am I going to pay her whatever exorbitant amount of money that I have her signed for when I can't, there's not much I can do with her other than book her as a dominant, and we've already been down that road and people were tired of that. It had gotten stale. And she can't be an effective babyface because she can't sell. Have you seen her attempt to sell?
It's not great. It's not great.
I'm not trying to be, but she can't. She's not great. And you brought up the house shows and the dark matches. That's something we brought up a million times. Put her on every house show. Have her work a 15-minute dark match. Have her work a 25-minute dark match.
Right. Find out if she's got it. We don't know. We don't know if she can work or not.
Or just put her out there and have her work dark matches before every TV with Emi Sakura and Ruby Soho and Serena Deeb and whoever you think your best workers are. Okay. And she didn't work a single house show. I think they've held 6 of them, 4 of them or 6 of them, however many they've held. She didn't work any of them. And I don't know if that's because they didn't try to book her. I don't know if that's because she wouldn't work them. I don't know. All I know is she didn't work any of the house shows. And I know that when I brought up the idea of putting her in dark matches before the TVs, I got a lot of pushback from AEW fans saying, oh, well, AEW doesn't do dark matches. They've been doing dark matches for months now. They do 1 or 2 dark matches before every TV now. So obviously they weren't completely opposed to the idea of doing dark matches on their shows. Now they're doing them to just give people some extra work. You could have been doing 20-minute dark matches with her for 2 years.
Yeah.
And then who knows? I personally don't think she ever would have improved. I just don't think she has it. But now you never found out.
We never found out. I think that was my overall point, is we never really found out if there was a next gear from her. And I do worry that AEW doesn't have the infrastructure to find out about a lot of people on their roster. I think it's a very bloated roster. There's a ton of talent. It's one of the most talented, wrestling rosters you can ever imagine. There's a lot of really, really good people there, but I do think that there is a talent development issue in the sense that, like, if you don't come there ready-made and ready to go, you're probably not going to improve, or you're not going to really get a whole lot of, opportunities to improve or show that you can actually improve or whatever. So I don't know, that does strike me as an issue. Now, my second point that I wanted to bring up about this Jade thing is, I don't think this is bad at all for AEW. I like, people, and I get it. There's a whole generation of wrestling fans that grew up where there was one company and everybody stayed in that one company for their entire careers until they got fired, and then they went to the indies and sulked a little bit, and then maybe they got rehired or whatever, or they never popped up again, or maybe they had a little Impact run or whatever, but that was it. That was what every talent would do. Sometimes they would go to Japan or whatever, very rarely. We're in a good system right now. We're in a very healthy wrestling ecosystem where people are going to go. People are going to jump from one show to the other. People are going to get the highest possible bids. Like you said, there's going to be people that are going to be better suited to be in WWE than in AEW, and there's going to be people that are better suited to be in AEW than WWE, and that's okay. We gotta calm down on every time somebody moves or somebody jumps or somebody leaves that this is the end of the fucking world, and oh my god, oh here we go, oh the perception, oh people are going to just think so negatively of it. We got to get past this. We got to move past this. We can't keep doing this every single time. I don't know what it's going to take. I don't know how many people are going to have to move before we stop doing this. This is a healthy wrestling ecosystem. I want people to move. You want people to move too. Trust me. You don't think you do. You do. You want people to move. You want people to change companies. You want. There's so many good things happen when people move. For the wrestlers, it's good. They get a fresh new coat of paint and probably some new paper, which is always good. The shows get better because you can tell new stories and get new people in. It's not stale. You don't need the same 50-50 booking for 4 years. And we have Dolph Ziggler and Kofi Kingston having 75 matches on TV over the course of 2 years or whatever. I mean, it challenges the companies to be better too in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I mean, the classic example that we always bring up was in New Japan Pro Wrestling lost all those guys in one fell swoop. When Styles and Nakamura and the Good Brothers left, it was people going, oh my God, and what they did is they said, all right, well, we have fucking Kenny Omega. Here you go. And it was the best years they ever had in this company. They said, all right, well, we got Kenny Omega and Okada, and we'll have those guys wrestle a bunch, and we'll move Kota Ibushi up, and then he'll wrestle a bunch. And oh yeah, we have Katsuyori Shibata, who we've been kind of putting up, but now he's going to work a little. It was like the best thing that could have ever happened to that company, those guys leaving. And it launched one of the best years in New Japan's history when those guys all bounced. It's okay. It's fine. It's not that big of a deal. It's good. You should want this. So yeah, I seeing this Jade thing and going, AEW's lost another perception battle. And like you said, it might even been their choice. They may have said, look, if they're going to give you that deal, Jade, we can't keep you here. Go ahead. Take that money. We appreciate everything you did for us here. That's a great deal. You can't pass it up for you or yourself or your family. Go ahead. And you want to be in movies and do all that sort of stuff. They seem like a better option for that too. Go ahead. Knock yourself out.
I'm just looking at the last couple weeks of dark matches, and a few weeks ago in Hoffman Estates, it was Stu Grayson versus Robert Anthony. Stu Grayson is certainly not someone who needs the extra work, having been doing this for 20 plus years. Robert Anthony
doesn't need the work either, man.
He's not even on the roster, and
he's worked for 20 plus years as well. So
yeah. The next week in Indianapolis, it was Johnny TV versus Brandon Cutler. I don't know what that is serving. Certainly not the audience. Certainly not talent development. They're just throwaway matches. This past week in Cincinnati, we had Aaron Solo and Johnny TV versus Brandon Cutler and Colt Cabana. We had Sky Blue versus Marina Shafir. They both certainly need ring time.
Yes, that's a great example. That is a match that should be on there and should be long. How long was that? Do they have the match time?
There's no match times. I mean, that's the blind leading the blind. Let's be honest. But those are people.
I would have a good wrestler with a bad wrestler instead. But you know what? Ring time. I'm fine with that.
Ring time. And then it was Anna Jay and Taya Valkyrie in a squash match over a couple of local wrestlers. So I just don't think they're even utilizing their dark matches to their best effectiveness. WWE traditionally, I don't know anymore, but what they used to do with their dark matches was give local indie wrestlers tryouts.
Yeah.
And that's getting something out of your dark matches. And you could do that, or you can use them for talent development. And I think AEW is wasting 2 opportunities per week with running 2 live shows a week of not putting a lot of their young, Action Andretti. If you don't have him booked on the show, he should be working a dark match.
Absolutely.
Against Christopher Daniels or, Pat Buck, who works the house shows. See, they do it properly on the house shows. A lot of the house show matches are young wrestlers against veteran wrestlers.
Well, those are dead now, right? With Collision, those are pretty much dead.
They haven't run any since Collision, so I don't know. But when they were running the occasional house show, I thought they were doing a proper job of it in terms of using it for talent development and whatnot, and getting that extra work. These dark matches are wasted opportunities. I mean, they're throwing Johnny TV out there. I mean, I know you have to justify the cost of hiring him. I myself just wouldn't have hired him.
Yeah, here's my option. Don't hire Johnny Wrestling.
Right.
Johnny TV, Johnny fucking whatever. Johnny, go away, please. God.
But you had Jade Cargill under contract for 2 years, and she could have been working dark matches on every fucking TV that you ever ran. And then at least you would have known. And, she could have had her go in there. And while she was TBS champion, I mean, I would have had the cameras rolling for those, and I'd have her win the matches, and then I would show a 30-second, 15-second, 20-second highlight later on Dynamite. Jade Cargill is now, and add it to her fucking streak.
Right.
Earlier tonight, Jade Cargill defeated Emi Sakura, and you show the finish, you show her hitting her finish, and she's now 47-0. You could even get a benefit out of it from that standpoint, but they didn't do it. There's no thinking outside the box. And now what you have is this underdeveloped, like this obvious person with amazing star presence that never developed, and you can't do anything with her. And now it's like you're in a predicament where you might have to just let her go. And, but I really do think she's a better suited for the other company.
I agree. And I think AEW
best for everyone.
And I think AEW will not miss her in
I don't
like
think so.
She could be a big star in WWE.
She was gone?
No.
I didn't miss her. I mean, I was tired of her when she was around. I didn't miss her. I mean, but that could just be our tastes. But do I think, here's the thing. She can be a breakout, enormous star in WWE while, and a benefit to them, while her exit from this company might not hurt this company at all.
Right. It doesn't have to be, it can be beneficial for both parties. I know it's impossible for wrestling fans to believe, but it's okay. Like, she can be a big giant star for WWE, and AEW can still survive and be okay. And it's not every single time that she does something, it's like, oh, AEW really missed the boat. Oh, look at this. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't always have to be that way. I mean, it will be that way. We know that because that's just how wrestling fans are, especially this current crop of sickos and freakazoids and all that sort of stuff. But it's like, yeah, this is kind of, it shouldn't be seen as sometimes this is a good thing. Sometimes it's good for both parties. Sometimes you just tell your story with somebody and they're done and they finish up with the territory and they move on, and that's okay. And we need to normalize that again. That has to be okay again. We can't just pretend. We just can't freak out every single time these things happen. But we're going to continue to do this. So.
Just as a fan, she ceased being interesting to me ages ago. So it's no loss.
Yeah, it's been about a year since I've been like, all right, what's next? What's the next level here? And AEW clearly didn't have an option for the next level. She might not have had a next level. I don't know what it was, but yeah, I was ready for her to go away.
Now, if Rampage was her write-off, I think I probably would have done that match on Dynamite or Collision at least. Now we're just nitpicking, I guess, but I mean, so you had Statlander beat her again, spoiler alert, and I feel like they should have done that on one of their A shows instead of the show that, people treat like an afterthought. And maybe you could have argued that since Statlander already beat her, that they could have had her put someone else over. But again, now you're kind of nitpicking. It might have just been better for Statlander to beat her twice and definitively, and definitively tell your audience that she's better than her. But, I don't even know how much that old school style booking even matters anymore, to be completely honest. But you should do business the right way and lose on the way out. And she did, if this is in fact the end. Man, I would have got Red Velvet out there to beat her. Why don't we wrap that up? I mean, she beat Red Velvet finally. Times.
Yeah, you're right.
Why don't she get out of her mama's kitchen and come beat, and give her a big win over Jade here? I don't think she's from your mama's kitchen anymore. Didn't she change where she's billed from?
You know what? I know nothing about Red Velvet at this time.
She used to be from your mama's kitchen.
She was when she was stirring it up. But but I don't know what she's doing now. So.
I don't think she's from your mama's kitchen anymore, though. I think she's, just from a city now. She's just from a city.
Yeah. Do we ever get the Layla Gray breakup? I don't know if you ever did that. Yeah, a lot of
God, what a cliffhanger.
A lot of loose ends not tied up here at the end of
unfortunately
the baddies. Yes. Yeah, the whole baddies. She only lost one baddie, but we don't know what happened. I guess I don't know. Did she ever? I don't even. Who cares? Nobody cares about it.
Yeah, no, Kira Hogan, and it was a rotating cast, and it was the same stories over and over with her too. And I mean, that's not
the promos are right. The same. I mean, how many times? Cut the shit, Tony. It's like, all right, we heard you. We got it.
Yeah. And the same shit over and over again. Kicking one of the baddies out, then beating them in a match, and I don't know. I was over it. But the booking isn't entirely on her. I mean, there's only so much you could do with her. I get it, but It didn't seem like they had any fresh. They were just waiting for Statlander to come back.
Right.
That's patently obvious, with the benefit of hindsight, that that's why it was seemingly everyone would complain about the Jade holding pattern. Well, yeah, it legitimately was. They were just waiting for Statlander to come back. And, it was just a couple days ago where she was saying there's nowhere she wants to be or would rather work than AEW. Now, it's a pro wrestler, but
professional liar. Yeah, it's a professional liar.
Could be another tip-off that maybe this was not her decision. Right? I mean, I don't know. I'm just putting clues together.
Yeah, I also think that's a leverage play too. Again.
Right, of course. Of course, that's, yeah.
She could have a meeting with WWE, go home, get that article out. WWE can say, "Oh, hey, whoa, Jade, hey, I thought we had a great conversation, but you know what? Hey, if there's anything else you need to kind of sweeten the deal, let us know." That could absolutely be what's going on as well, because that's what you should do.
No doubt about it. So I'm sure it'll all come out in the wash, and we'll find out. And look, we don't even know if she's officially gone. It seems like.
Right, a lot of expected to be believed type of wording. It's not Jade Cargill is finishing up and she reports to WWE in 2 weeks or whatever. None of that yet.
No, it's just people believe that's the side that's going to ultimately end up with her.
Right.
We don't know if there's an actual bidding war taking place. We don't know if Tony has shaken her hand and parted ways and now she's just negotiating with WWE. We don't know that we don't know. We just know that we don't really know anything. We just know that 2 reporters are saying that people are telling them that they expect her to end up with WWE. So we'll see.
And then on the other side of that, Edge. Mixed reports so far. PW Insider reported earlier this week that Edge, Adam Copeland, was removed from WWE's internal roster with the belief that he could be AEW bound. They have since updated that to say that Edge has been restored to the internal roster, but not as an active wrestler. So I don't know where that leaves us with the Edge Adam Copeland thing. Where does your heart tell you, or where does your mind tell you, I think, about Edge here? Do you think he's AEW bound? Do you think he's done in WWE? Are we still not sure? Where are you at with this whole Edge story?
I don't know. Obviously, Tony Khan would take him because he tried to get him the first time. So, and now with Christian there, it's just, obviously, if Tony can get him, he would. So we'll see. I don't know. I don't have any insight on it. The thing about Edge is he very much likes, he's an old school worker in that way where he wants to work people. So, he's done this before where he's publicly said that he wasn't going to be somewhere or do something, and then he does it. And it's like, so you don't try to read tea leaves with him. You'll get misdirected and everything else. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. I mean, I think I'm more open to him coming to AEW than you are.
Oh,
you
yeah.
seem to be totally out on it.
That's an understatement. Yeah, I have no time at all for Edge. Go away.
If he's going to sit on a stool with a spotlight and do thespian promos, I don't have any use for it either. But I don't know that he would do that in that company. I would like to think he's smart enough to understand it's a different environment. We just talked about how different environments work better for different people. I think there's interesting stories to be told with him and Christian potentially. I think that Christian.
Listen to you. When's the last time you gave a shit about Edge? Think about it.
Never. I mean, almost never, because I've never been an Edge guy.
Right.
But I'm just looking at it from AEW's point of view of why they'd want to bring him in. I mean, I think there's some things that can be done there. Obviously, they're right there, obvious and on the table. But I don't know.
Dude's 49, has never meant anything for business ever. The only time he popped the ratings because everybody wanted to see Lita's tits. You know what I mean? Like, what are we doing here, man?
Yeah, I know.
Guy's going to cost $1 billion to bring in. You're going to spend a lot of money. You're going to push him like crazy. There's so many guys in that roster that can't get TV time, can't get a fucking storyline written for them, can't be put in a feud. And you're going to spend multiple millions of dollars on a 49-year-old Adam Copeland who hasn't meant a thing for business ever. Get out of here. Waste of time and money.
You asked me if you thought they would bring him in. That's all. I don't know. I think they might.
Oh, and then you're trying to explain Edge. Like, you gave a shit about Edge ever. You don't give a fuck about Edge.
I never gave a shit about
This is what I'm saying. Like, people are like, well, I'd like to see him outside the WWE structure. When is the last? I mean, if you haven't given a shit about a guy in 15 years, are you really going to give a shit about him again?
I've actually found all of his comeback to be annoying.
They're all terrible. They're all worse than the one before. Yeah, they stink. He's going to drag Christian down, too. That's my least favorite thing about this whole thing, because people are like, well, I don't know. There's some Edge and Christian stuff that could be pretty good. I love Christian right now. I don't want him fucking around with Edge. Get out of here. Go away.
think you might get it though.
I know. Oh, I know I'm getting it. I know. And again, this company that continues to, push people that don't ever move business. I don't know. I personally wouldn't do that. I wouldn't pay a bunch of people who never move business, but not my company.
Yeah, well, I know.
Can't wait for Edge and Christian versus the Hardys, man. Whoa, jeez. Only saw that match
he's gonna
45 fucking times 23 years ago. Great. Let's run it back again. Now they're all old and worse. Great.
Oh, cool. He's going to book that, isn't he?
Of course he is.
He's going to book that.
Yep.
It'll be over in the building. Edge is always over in the building.
Oh, always over in the building. Always over in the building. Yep.
I mean, he is always mega over in the building.
Right. Can't get people to watch the show that he's on, but yeah, in the building, they love him.
Can you get the Alter Bridge song? Can you get the rights to that?
Sure. I don't know. I just, you know what?
Real song, right? So.
It is a real song. Yeah. I don't know if, it's just like I'm looking at AEW right now and all the time and the money and the effort that they're going to have to put in and all that could be used on so many other guys on that roster that might mean something. Like I always say this, and it's true. Pro wrestling, the way that you get more popular in pro wrestling is by pushing people that have never been pushed before, or pushed in a different way, or doing something unique. Going back to somebody who's been on national television for 2 decades that never meant anything is not going to all of a sudden turn your business around. It's not. So you can lie to yourself and tell you, oh, well, Edge is going to be, he's not going to mean anything. I'm telling you right now, he hasn't meant anything in 20 years. He's not going to mean anything now that he's in AEW. And you can keep doing that, but I don't know, personally, I'd spend that time and money and the resources on a Darby Allin, on a Powerhouse Hobbs, on a Ricky Starks, on a Jay White. Remember they signed Jay White? Remember that guy? Jay White?
Oh, he's doing all right.
He's doing okay? All right, well.
He's doing okay, right?
Doing okay, I guess. Yeah, sure.
Bullet Club Gold.
Has the man talked yet? Have they given the man a microphone to talk yet?
Yeah, he's doing a little more talking. He hasn't stood in the ring with the mic for 11 minutes.
Well, guess who's going to stand in the ring with a mic for 11 fucking minutes every single week and get paid $4 million a year to do it? Edge.
Well, hopefully not sitting on a stool. Hopefully standing at minimum, and no spotlight and no going to that place. Is Edge to blame for going to that place? Is he the one who started going to that place? Is he the?
He certainly didn't say no. He didn't say no to any of those ideas, and he certainly had the ability to say no to a lot of those ideas.
Yeah. So is he ground zero that place? Is he the guy?
I
think he's ground zero for that, right?
I think he is.
Or patient zero, whatever you want to call that. He's we have him to blame.
Mm-hmm. Orange Cassidy, that's another guy who's ready to take a next step up to the main event with this, but no. Yeah. Adam Copeland. Well, all right, cool. Great.
All he got was a 20-second weird promo with Hook this week. I don't know what that was.
And he's like hanging around weirdly. Everyone's like, hey, Orange. He's like, I'm still hurt. Well, go home, dude. And then he just, it's like, we don't have the next step ready for Orange Cassidy. Really? Like,
the thing is, I've been thinking about that, and I should have brought it up behind the paywall in the review. It probably would have been better to get him off of TV for a while.
Yes, because now he's just weird. Now he's like hanging around. He's like the fucking guy who graduated high school is still at the parties. It's like, go away for a little bit, man. Like, you know what I mean? Because you could bring him back in 5-6 weeks or whatever, nice and healed, and he makes a big return at Grand Slam or whatever. Big surprise or whatever. But yeah, he's just hanging around doing stuff with people that should be beneath him. Hook's beneath him at this point, right?
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah.
Move this guy up the ladder. What's the fucking plan for this guy? Let's go. Come on.
I feel like maybe, I thought he was just going to keep wrestling every week, but I feel like maybe the promo last week, he should have said, I have to go away for a while. And then Mox's music hits and he leaves, and it's like, you don't see him for 6 weeks.
Right.
And you miss him. Right. But I don't know. So I don't know. I'll let it play out, as they let it play out. Yeah. But I don't really quite get this one.
No, but moving on to AEW business here. Let's talk about ticket sales in many, many different ways here. A bit of a disturbing trend for old AEW. Ticket sales slow almost across the board for most of their events in September and October and leading into a little bit of November as well. This week's Dynamite, like we talked about at the top of the show, the second worst attended AEW TV show of the year, just barely surpassing a Collision in Regina Saskatchewan. This week had 2,667, which is not that many. That's not that many people to be at a television show. 2,667. That did beat out the Collision in Regina that had 2,474. And just to give you a little bit of reference, the last time AEW was at the Heritage Bank Center in Cincinnati, which was October 18, 2022, the attendance was 4,740. So basically double of what they had for Dynamite last night. And that is not a aberration. That is not just a one-time thing. AEW Collision, September 16th, this upcoming weekend, Bryce Jordan Center in University Park, Pennsylvania, set up for 4,207. As of 3 days ago, had sold 2,426. So they're about halfway, a little over halfway on that show, which is happening in 2 days. AEW Dynamite Grand Slam, September 20th at the Arthur Ashe Stadium, set up for 12,129. As of 2 days ago, they have sold 6,284. Yesterday, they also rolled out a buy one, get one ticket offer for the show for Arthur Ashe. That's a bad one. That is not good.
Yeah. And as I noted last week too, they also have tickets available on the seat filler, the Broadway seat filler site that one of my friends uses to get super discounted and in most cases free tickets to Broadway events and sporting events, things like that. He got a seat to that show for $5. Yeah. He got into Arthur Ashe for $5. So they're doing everything they can to put people in. They announced a bunch of matches this week on TV. We'll see if that'll help.
That should hopefully move it. Yeah, that should hopefully move it. This was 2 days ago. This is before the Dynamite, so that should hopefully move it a little bit. But yeah, it's not. I mean, that Arthur Ashe thing felt like a layup most years, and now it's like they're scratching and clawing to get to 10,000, and I don't even know if they're going to get there.
At one point, it was the biggest show they ever did,
right?
And now it's by far going to be the least attended they've ever had. They're going to have to shoot it carefully at this point to not expose a bunch of empty seats. I mean, it's a 20,000 seat building. And yeah, I mean, people can, the people who like to point to ticket prices, I will point out that UFC is running Madison Square Garden. They're going to pack the place standing room only. And the cheapest seat, the worst seat, the third level last row is a $900 seat.
Yeah.
So I don't want to hear about your ticket price.
I sat in that one for the Super Show. While you were in the front row somehow, I sat in very much the last couple rows of the Madison Square Garden. You're up in the catwalk there, man. You can touch the catwalk in Madison Square Garden. That's $900.
Where the diehard psychopath Ranger fans sit.
Is that spot? Cool.
No, that's a thing. Like
okay, okay.
I think they call it, and that's where the psychopath Ranger fans, like the blue collar Ranger fan, sits up there, Rich. And listen, you're making me have to be too posh here. I was not in the first row. I was in the fourth row. Okay, so let's straighten that out for everybody.
Right.
I was not.
But if you think Joe was big time and paying a bunch of money, he didn't, and somehow he got it like 2 minutes before the show started. So I don't know how he did.
I didn't have a ticket at the door of Madison Square Garden that night, and I ended up in the fourth row. So. I don't buy tickets to things. You know that. I just show up and figure it out.
You do. But, sometimes you just walk in. I've seen that happen too.
Well, I mean, if they're not going to stop you, you just, but yeah. So I don't want to hear about ticket prices because
if you got a product that's worth buying, people will buy it. They don't care.
They're going to buy it. $900 to sit literally in the worst seat in the building, and they're going to have standing room only for that event. So. I'm sorry if I'm not moved because some AEW tickets are $150. I mean, please. By the time half of these shows go off, like you said, they got the buy one get ones, they got the family 4-packs, they got
right. Even if they raise the prices to make money, they're fucking losing all that by giving people $2 tickets and buy one get one frees and 2-for-1s and all this sort of stuff that's going on.
Yeah. So, I mean, are they gaming the system in some cities if they're drawing 7,000? But the problem is they're not drawing 7,000 anywhere anymore versus drawing 10,000. It's just going backwards. So.
Well, and aesthetically, I think it's been rough too because you're watching these Dynamites and it's just dark. Half the building's empty and it sounds weird. It's like even if financially they're like, well, we're actually making more money doing this. Like aesthetically, it sucks. And they've also had a trend recently too where they have greatly reduced prices, coming up to the show, like the day of the show, a couple days before the show. You're getting things like the buy one get ones or heavily discounted tickets or whatever. That sucks if you bought tickets 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, because you're like, what the fuck? I bought a full price $40 ticket, and this guy over here has a buy one get one, and he only paid $20 for the same ticket, and he got one for free. And they've been doing that, and people are noticing that too. People are kind of sniffing that out, and that is going to be a perception thing that you have to deal with as well, where people can say, well, you know what? Nah, I'm not gonna. I'll buy a ticket when we get right down to it. The idea that you got to buy a ticket to this AEW show right away the second they go on sale, or else you're not going to go to that show. That's done. You can wait around until the day before and buy a ticket. And get a good ticket still for that price. That's bad too. You don't want to do that. So even if they are making more money with whatever they're doing or running these buildings or running whatever ticket prices, whatever, they're doing a lot of stuff that's probably hurting their perception in the marketplace as well. But a few of these other shows: Dynamite September 27th from the First Bake Center in Broomfield, Colorado, set up for 3,845. As of 5 days ago, has only sold 1,878. The last time they were there, which was December 28th, 2022, they had 4,229 in there. And they're not even set up for 4,000 this time, and they've only sold just under 2,000.
Yeah, we can talk in circles forever. The bottom line is they don't have a hot program. They don't have hot stars right now, and that's why they're not selling tickets. People don't think they're going to get a great show like they used to get when they would go to an AEW show. And I don't think the Dynamites, I thought there was a run of Dynamites that were bad. I don't think Dynamite has been bad lately.
No, I don't think so either.
It's been a good show, but it hasn't been a great show. I talk about the three tenets of the classic great Dynamite all the time. Great matches, great promos, lots of shit happening. And it's very rare that Dynamites these days tick all three boxes. It's very rare. Dynamite used to go on runs where there were great matches, plural, every week. Now you're lucky to get one great match. Like this week's Dynamite, there was a bunch of good matches.
There's a lot of good, not great. A lot of good, not great.
Nothing gets to great. And it used to be, oh, wow, that Dynamite had two great matches and two good matches and a Jade Cargill match. Now you're getting some good matches, and very rarely great. You get a great one now and then. When's the last time we had a truly great promo? We used to get great promos, and lots of shit happens. Yeah, last night I thought there was a lot of storyline advancement. Lots of shit happened. You didn't have great matches. You didn't have great promos. You had good matches and okay promos. So I think people know they're not going to get the same quality of show that they used to get, and there's not a hot story. The Brochacho thing is not a hot story. I'm sorry. They're selling less tickets as this thing moves along. If that's a hot story, you'd be selling tickets because people would need to see MJF and Adam Cole and what's going to happen next. It's a story that people react to in the building for sure. It's a story that has popped television quarter hours for sure. It's not a ticket selling story, but neither was the Bloodline for the first 2 years. So who knows? So let's check back and see how the Brochachos are doing in 2.5 years, Rich.
Right. For sure. Thank God. I can't wait.
See how that's doing in 2.5 years.
Can't wait. Real quickly, I'll do these last three shows here. Collision, September 30th, Climate Pledge Arena, Seattle, Washington. This is the day before, 2 days before, Wrestle Dream. Set up for 6,417. As of 5 days ago, I've only sold 3,373, which gets us to the pay-per-view, Wrestle Dream, which you would assume, okay, well, yeah, these are Collisions and Dynamites or whatever, but AEW pay-per-view is one of the best bets in wrestling that I'm going to buy tickets to a pay-per-view and it's going to rule, right? Climate Pledge Arena in Seattle, Washington, their big arena, set up for 6,905. As of 2 days ago, have sold only 4,136 tickets.
Yeah, I don't think people know what that is. I don't think they're waiting and seeing. The pay-per-views have done okay at the gate. So,
that one's weird. That one is strange. Yeah, I do wonder if a lot of people locally just don't really understand what that thing is.
They don't know what it is, and they're not in that market often either, the Pacific Northwest, and that's always been a funky market for wrestling.
Yeah, well, they didn't set it up very big either. I mean, they're renting out that whole big arena for a pay-per-view, a quote-unquote pay-per-view, and it's got, they're only set up for, under, $69.05, like I said. That's, I don't know, that... I think they knew they weren't going to do well there, which is strange. Like I would have, I don't know. It's odd. I don't know. Maybe when the whole card finally comes out,
they'll see a boost with that.
Well, and it extends to the full gear as well in the Kia Forum. So that's November 18th. So that's long in the future here. They have it set up for 7,835 right now per WrestleTix. And obviously that can change and they can move things if tickets sell pretty well. And they've done okay. They've sold 6,730 tickets to that show. So that's okay. They're getting close to selling what they've set up for. But the last time they were there, which was January 11, 2023, which is the conclusion of the best of 7 series, the Bucks and the Death Triangle, whatever. They sold 9,636 tickets for that show. They were just under 10,000.
They'll have 10,000 this year too, I think, based on that advance. I think the pay-per-views do okay. You
think they'll get 10,000 for full gear?
Well, they're over 6,000 now.
They're 6,730 right now.
They're a little under 7,000. They'll do what they did last year, I think, which is almost 10,000.
You think they'll add tickets?
Yeah, that's a long ways to go. I mean, that show's not until when? What's the date on that?
November 18th. November 18th for that.
Yeah,
show.
I mean, there's 2 months to go. That's a good advance, especially by their standard. Look,
by their current standards, it is. By their current standards, that's a good advance.
By their current standards, yes. I don't think the pay-per-views are the problem. I think it's the week-to-week TV.
Yeah, I agree.
The pay-per-views are a little down. Chicago was a little down. The Wrestle Dream thing's weird. People were waiting to see what that is. Wembley obviously was a whole different animal.
Right.
So I don't know. I think the Forbidden Door did well.
Speaking of turnstiles and AEW ratings and ticket sales here, WrestleNomics reported that AEW All In, you just mentioned them, the turnstile count for AEW All In was 72,265 according to local government records. Joe, what does this mean? Should I freak out? What's going on here? What did you make of the WrestleNomics report that the turnstile count 72,265?
What it means is we now have an annoying third number that everybody's going to want for these shows. They're going to want how many people were in the building. They're going to want how many people paid and bought tickets. And they're going to want what was the turnstile count. You're going to hear that forever now. What was the turnstile count? We already had 2 numbers that people would argue over. Now we have a third number that people are going to argue over. And, in Brandon's right up there, he noted that a typical AEW show has between 80 and 90% of what they call a drop rate.
Yeah.
And if you take the number of tickets sold that Tony Khan claims, the 72 number that you just gave, 72 plus, would be 89%, which would fall within that 80 to 90% drop rate. And what the drop rate is people who have purchased tickets who, for whatever reason, don't show up. So it's plausible that Tony gave it the accurate number of tickets sold. Because
81,035 was the number the night of.
81,035, because 89% of that would be the 72 number that you just gave, and that would fall within the usual drop rate of an average AEW show. These are all, we have never discussed drop rates and turnstile numbers before
ever.
So be prepared. The most annoying thing about this, I have to be honest with you, I really don't give a fuck anymore how many people were.
No, I hate this now. I hate this conversation now, and this might be the last time we do it.
I am so done with it.
I hate it.
I'm so done with it. I don't understand why it's so difficult. Like it should just be a hard number. That's just, and these debates are tiresome. They're boorish. And now we have to add, get prepared, because drop rate and turnstile count is going to be part of everybody's vernacular now. And I am just so fucking over it. I'm just so over it. It's, the worst part about this, obviously, is it gives fuel to the worst and dumbest people on Twitter to now argue forever into eternity about WrestleMania, whatever number that was.
32.
35. 32 versus this, and how the turnstile count was less. And that's the worst part about it. The dumbest, most vapid, most ignorant people on earth now have fuel. And that part sucks. But yeah, I don't know. I'm so over this shit now. It's we're gonna go through all of this next year, and next year they're gonna have, let's say they have 70,000 sold, with a month to go, and now everyone, now the new thing now is they're going back to Tony Khan bought the other 10,000 tickets. Rich, I just can't.
I'm over it. Yeah, if we're not gonna look at like what reasons might exist for why people don't show up to a show, and we're just gonna go right to, Tony Khan bought tickets.
Proof that Tony bought the tickets.
It's like, all right, I think I'm good here. I think I'm good here. Right.
And the problem with these discussions is it's always the dumbest people that end up driving the direction of this discussion, because then everyone argues with these fucking idiots, the crying face emoji crowd, and they inadvertently drive the conversation. And at the end of the day, I don't think I care enough about, you know what I mean? Like, it's it wears you down to the point where it's like, I don't know, there were a lot of fucking people there. What do you want from me? The biggest show ever. Do I think Tony would lie? I don't. I do not think Tony Khan is lying about the number of tickets sold to that show, because I think he knows that's the kind of lie you can't come back from, because that's what the other side does. I don't think he's lying. But now we all have to be prepared to discuss turnstile counts for fucking eternity now.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I'm glad you came to that conclusion, because I kind of came to that conclusion too, and I was like, now we're doing turnstile counts. I think I'm out on caring about attendances and pissing contests about editing Wikipedia pages and stuff. And yeah, I don't know if I care anymore. Yeah, I think I'm gonna give up on caring about attendances. And then you got WWE doing combined attendances for shows, and it's like, all right, we've lost I don't care anymore. So I'm glad you came to the similar conclusion that I'm just over it. So there you go. That is turnstile count and drop rates, and yeah, get used to hearing those words. But
who's got the record, Rich? North Korea's got the record.
What? I'm with you. You know what? I'm gonna do that. Let's just become North Korea truthers and just say,
I am team North Korea.
Right. It's so much easier. It's like when people ask me who's the greatest basketball player of all time, I say Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and then they stop talking to me because they want me to say Jordan or LeBron so they can argue with me, and I just go Kareem, and they go, oh, and then they never ask me again. It's perfect. I love it.
The drop rate on the turnstile count for that show had an entirely different meaning.
It definitely. Oh, yes, it did. Yes, it did. Yeah, we're going to become Collision and Korea truthers. I'm glad. That's quite the pivot for us. But yes. It's just so much easier.
You're in agreement.
It's just so much easier. Yeah, when you can ape for the North Korean government, you just got to do it, and we just got it.
Raj
at this point.
Was right after all.
Right. Apologize to Raj. Yeah.
Between that and the Sasha story, the man's on a roll.
Right. This Jade thing. Maybe we should start listening to him about this Jade thing.
Yeah.
He might nail the Jade thing too, so we'll see what ends up happening there. But yeah, I think I'm moving over to I'm with you on the Collision in Korea story there. So, all right, Joe, we got about half an hour left in the show here, and a few other big topics to get to. I don't know how you want to structure the rest of the show. You want to do CMLL and maybe move the Japan stuff to an overrun? What are you feeling right now with a half hour left? Cover 2 massive tournaments and a 90th anniversary show for CMLL.
Well, the 90th anniversary is this weekend. I mean, we talked about it a little bit when they announced the card, as I have hiccups now for some reason. So we kind of have gone over it. I know that Cubs fan, did he write the preview yet?
He did. Yeah, there is a preview up at voicesofwrestling.com. It is good as always, because Cubs fan, nobody knows more about Lucha than Cubs fan. So yeah, great stuff there. Available right now, voicesofwrestling.com.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess we'll go over it very quickly again. Dragon Rojo Jr. and Templario in the main event. That's mask versus mask. Someone's losing a mask. That's always a huge deal. Those guys have had an excellent feud all summer long, so that's a well-built mask match. And it's 2 guys kind of, especially when you're talking about Templario, on the rise. It's, a lot of times you get a couple veterans in a mask match, a guy looking for one last big payoff. And this is a well-built feud between 2 guys in their prime and one guy who's really been emerging. So I think it's interesting from that standpoint. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And, then you've got Averno and Ultimo Guerrero versus Angel de Oro and Volador Jr. Then it's Kevin Knight, Rocky Romero and TJP. This is Rocky Romero recruiting his buddies to help him battle Místico, who, in Atlantis Jr. and Mascara Dorada, no longer 2.0, just straight up Mascara Dorada now. Metalik left them on bad terms. The last time we talked about this, they had stopped booking him, but he's been talking some shit on the way out too. A little bit of bitterness there, I guess. He's kind of become a grumpy old man.
Yeah, he became like learn how to grab a hold kid, learn how to work. And I'm like, grab a Metalik. I'm watching him in the Cruiserweight Classic right now, doing that series on flagshipatreon.com. And I'm like, this guy rocks. And he's just like doing cool flippy doos and crazy stuff. And now like you see him on Twitter and he's like, these kids don't know how to work. And I'm like, wow, I didn't realize that Metalik Mascara Dorada would become that kind of guy. But here we are. And he's only like
WWE broke him.
He's only like 36, right? 34. He's 34. He's way too young to be doing the learn how to work kids stuff. But yeah.
Maybe he sees younger guys doing things that, he used to be the innovator, and maybe it's a matter of he sees guys doing things that he doesn't do.
Yeah.
It happens to all these guys eventually. It's, I don't know, but it feeds into the next match because you have Lince Dorado and Samurai Del Sol against Soberano Jr. and Titan. You have to think that originally Metalik was earmarked for that, for kind of like the Lucha House Party coming back together, and it's
for sure. Yeah.
So now you have it as just a tag match, which, okay. And I'm happy to see Soberano Jr. and Titan on the show. They've certainly earned a spot on the show this year. Then, it is the 90th anniversary. So you have to have a match with the older guys, and it's Atlantis, Blue Panther, and Octagon versus El Satanico, who's been working more than you might think. I saw a match between him and Tiger Mask, which was something else. Combined age of well over 100 on that one.
Right.
Fuerza Guerrera, the father of Juventud, and Virus. So, I have no problem with a match like that on a show like this. It's 90th anniversary. It's a nod to some other eras and all that. And then
I guess Cubs fan wrote this, and I have no reason to believe that he's wrong about this, but this is Octagon's first anniversary show.
That's crazy. He was a AAA guy for a long time.
He was for a long time, but I was wondering if he somehow he never snuck on any of the other ones. Doesn't that kind of surprise you? Because the guy was there he was obviously, CMLL for a number of years, but I don't know. It just I was kind of like, oh, yeah, I guess so. And I looked, and as far as I could tell, he was right. And again, I have no reason to believe that Cubs fan would be lying about that or whatever. But yeah, this is a guy who, did.
Cubs fan is a liar.
Right.
I feel like, the guy was in AAA for 20 years.
Right.
So that eliminates, a lot of, and then,
he did EMLL and CMLL in like the early 90s. And I think he may have done the late 80s. I forget if he was even around then. And he was still pretty young at that point.
Like everyone before AAA existed, of course, he was with he was working Arena Mexico.
Right.
But
right.
As a young wrestler, this isn't as unreal as it might seem, because as a young wrestler, he just may not have had a spot on an anniversary show. Then he was with AAA for 20 years. And then the last 10 years or so, he's really been an indie guy.
Right.
And it's like, so, on the surface, it's shocking, because he's been in and out of, and he's a name guy, and he's been in and out of CMLL.
But it makes sense when you break it down. Yeah, that's kind of how I was like, there's no way. And I was like, I guess so. The guy left in April of 1992, CMLL, did AAA forever, returned to CMLL in 2017. And then, like you said, it's just kind of been bouncing around the last couple of years or whatever. And, he was there in 2017 and 2018 a little bit, but hasn't really become full-time until 2022 and now 2023. So yeah, it makes sense that this would be his first one. So it's like, oh yeah, okay, that does make sense. But yeah, I remember reading that sentence and I was like, no way. And yeah, it's true. So
yeah. And then the women's tag team, they're introducing the women's tag team titles.
Yes.
So you want to take a crack at those pronunciations?
I do not.
No.
There's some strange ones there. I am very scared about many of those.
All right. So there's Stephanie Vaquer, who made a name against Mercedes Moné a couple of months back. Zeusis? I'm not sure how you say
that. One's all you, man. That one's all you. I see the other team is Las Chicas, so I know that. I could say Las Chicas. That one works.
La Gerachita and Juvia. I think that's pronounced or Lavia. I don't know. Which I don't know. Well, it's the two L's like lave, right?
Oh,
like
that's right. Yeah, your favorite wrestling style.
But I'm going to be honest. I skip the women's matches when I watch CMLL. I don't even watch the women's matches. So I don't, I'm obviously familiar with Vakir. The others I don't watch. They're usually just awful. So I don't bother watching them anymore. But, so I can't give you anything on those. I know that, when I look at the card, I think I said this, last time. They did a good job really working in the vast majority of the feuds that they have spent all year building. Could you have gotten, Hechicero in there with Mephisto and Euphoria somehow? I guess so. I guess you could have done that. But outside of that, there's really not much to really complain about. And, you can't have everybody on the show. This isn't fucking Corgan's NWA where you're going to have 25 matches. I mean, it's an Arena Mexico show. You're going to have 5-6 matches. That's just, you're going to have 6 matches. So there's not really a lot to gripe from that standpoint. And, CMLL has been nothing short of great this year. So I expect this show to deliver, especially when I look at the lineup. And for someone who might be parachuting in, I can't give you anything on the women's tag, so I'm not even going to pretend. Don't expect much out of the older guys, in that match. But everything else, the ceiling is Notebook for sure.
Oh yeah. Soberano has been one of my favorite wrestlers in the world this year, and him and Teton, that should be an awesome team there. The Rocky Romero stuff with Mystico and that whole, him bringing in the New Japan Strong dudes with Knight and TJP against Atlantis and Dorada and Mystico. I mean, that sounds awesome. That's got some heat to it and some real, backbone to it. And then, the other stuff is like matches with stakes, like the Averno and Ultimo Guerrero thing. I think that tag match, the winning team advances to a hair match on that show as well. So you're getting an additional match combined with that. I think they're going to do it on the, I don't know if Cubs fans not sure if they're going to do it back to back or if they're going to give it a little bit of space or whatever. But yeah, you're also going to get another bonus match between one of those two teams as well. So that's cool. And then, like you said, the Templario versus Dragon Road. I mean, it's for a mask. And those matches always have some stakes to them. You know what I mean? Like someone's going to lose their mask, like no matter what it's going to be. But it's been a well-built feud, and I think both those guys are pretty solid. I've been a big fan of Templario so far this year. So yeah, it's like, it looks good on paper. And I think that was essentially Cubs fans, review or preview was kind of like, on paper, it kind of looks like a disappointing lineup, but then you really break it down and it's like, yeah, there's some better stuff in here than you might think. And at the end of the day, CMLL has pretty much delivered on every one of their major shows this year, so there's a very good chance it's going to be great as well. So yeah, it looks like it should be a lot of fun. Now, watching it's going to be a little more difficult. I think it's streaming live on some weird service, and then on YouTube it'll be there if you pay for CMLL's YouTube or whatever. But there's also nefarious means if you want to watch CMLL eventually as well. But we'll preview it we'll review it when we get a chance to watch it. But hopefully, it should be able to be watchable pretty soon. So there you go. Now let's move on to the other tournaments. We'll start with the Noah N-1 Victory Tournament. They wrapped up their tournament September 3rd. Go Shiozaki defeating Kano in the tournament finals to win his first ever N-1. We've caught up on the entire tournament, or I should say you've caught up on the entire tournament. I watched like the last 6 or 7 matches from the tournament. You somehow watched every single match from this tournament over the last couple of days. So why don't you give your overall thoughts about the tournament, and then we'll talk about kind of the final stretch, really the final 2 shows. I think I wanted to focus on a little bit more, but anything in the tournament itself that kind of caught your eye before we get into the final bits here?
Okay, so I didn't watch every single match. I here's what I did. The first few shows I watched every single match. Then from there, once I got a feel for it, I figured out what could be skipped.
Okay, were you watching all these all these Jake Lee 30-minute draws or no? Because I'm not watching any of those.
Jake Lee was not good in this tournament. He was actually one of the guys where I just stopped watching his matches. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, he did him and Jack Morris went to a 30-minute draw in this N1 tournament, as well as him and Masa Kitamiya. I don't know why he couldn't just beat those. I don't know what was going on there, but
his book was really weird.
Gotta protect Jack Morris. It's okay. All right.
I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9. I've got 13, 14. Do I have 15? 14 notebook matches for the tournament.
Okay.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot. And oddly enough, not the final. That might shock some people.
Whoa. All right. So that is going to shock
I got a hot
people.
take on the final.
It's going to shock me. Let's go.
I thought the best night was the 27th in the Kawasaki, which had the final stretch of matches to determine who was going to go to the final, and then the decision match between Go Shiozaki and Manabu Soya.
Yeah.
Now, they had a draw a couple days earlier, and then Soya beat El Hijo del Dr. Wagner Jr. to go to 9 points, and then Shiozaki in the next match beat Nakajima to knock out Nakajima and go to 9. So Soya and Shiozaki were tied at 9, and they had to have a decision match. So, Kano beat Jake Lee to put them both at 10, but with the head-to-head, Kano advanced to the final out of the A block. But Shiozaki and Soya had to have another match because they were tied at 9, and there was no tiebreak because they had a draw. I thought that their first match, the draw, up to that point was the best match I saw in the tournament. Okay, that was on the 26th. I think they wrestled on back-to-back nights, as a matter of fact, because the decision match was on the 27th. The match on the 26th, I went 4.5 minus. And then the decision match, I went 4.25 plus. So essentially the same rating, but I did prefer the draw slightly to the decision match. The decision match, I thought, took a while to get going.
It did. Yeah, that was good. That's my notes is like the last couple of minutes were awesome, but it took and they tried to sell, and I get it, the way that they try to sell this, because if you didn't watch this show, what they had is Soya won his match, and then he just hung around because Shiozaki was next, and he just said, you know what, I'll sit and watch the match, see what happens.
I love that.
See if I go through. So he's sitting there shirtless in a pool of sweat. Get the man a towel, for God's sakes. He's just sitting there sweating, and they keep showing him on the camera, and he's grumpy because he's Manabu Soya, so he's a little grumpy. He's sweating. And he's watching this match, and he's watching this match, and he's watching this match, and then Go Shiozaki wins, and they cut to him, and he's got the look on his face like, fucking, all right. I'll face the guy. Fuck it. All right, let's do this. You know what I mean? Like, he's got it's a cool look, though. He looks like a badass. Like, he's not like, oh, I don't want to face this guy. He's just kind of like, I didn't really think I was going to be having to work again, but you know what? I got to take this guy's head off. Fine, fuck it. I'll take this guy's head off again. And Shiozaki has that same look, too. So they come out for their decision match, 20 minutes later. Both guys are still sweating. They're not really all put together. Soya's hair is still fucked up. Shiozaki's hair is still fucked up. I love that. I love that they didn't go back and shower and put him in nice gear and stuff. They came out sweaty. Soya's got, bruises all over his body. Shiozaki's got bruises all over his body after facing Nakajima. And then they came out there and they just beat the fuck out of each other. But the problem was they tried to sell that story for a lot of the beginning of the match, is that both these guys were exhausted. And then they kind of kicked it into overdrive and did their kind of normal-ish match in the last half or so. But I agree with you. It did take a little while to get going.
Yeah, which partially was the story, but it just wasn't very interesting. But it was still a great match. I just preferred the draw. And my big takeaway out of the tournament is that Manabu Soya deserves a push. I think that he was
fucking
really
rocks.
a breakout guy here.
Yeah, he rocks.
And I think that may have been by design. I mean, look, on the final night, he beats El Hijo del Dr. Wagner Jr., who, don't forget, that's the national champion. So that sets up a title match. I mean, it should anyway, which I think Soya should win. And Soya, with these 2 matches against Go, really proved his mettle against the guy who won the tournament. So, to me, and you never know with Noah the way it's booked. Okay?
Yeah, it's a dangerous thing to try to predict Noah.
But to me, this was set up to get Soya over, and he knocked it out of the park. We might come on here in a month, and they go nowhere with Soya.
Very possible.
But that's what it felt like to me. And he was really great. The match on the 10th against Yuma Anzai, I went 4 stars. He had... let me pull out my notes here. Obviously the 2 matches against Go. I just thought Soya throughout the whole tournament, Nakajima on the 6th, the match he lost to Nakajima, that I thought that was a notebook match. Nakajima was phenomenal in this tournament. Nakajima's match against El Hijo del Dr. Wagner Jr. on the 10th. The two best shows were the 10th and the 27th. The 10th had Soya versus Yuma Anzai, Nakajima versus El Hijo del Dr. Wagner Jr., and the Kano versus Yoshiki Inamura match, which I thought to that point was the best match in the tournament. It got surpassed later on. But, that match fucking rocked. So those 2 nights of the tournament I thought were the best. The 27th was the show we were just talking about with the decision match. But, some other guys that stood out. I thought Kano was obviously, Shiozaki, Yuma Anzai working kind of like an underdog gimmick. I thought his matches against Go Shiozaki, Manabu Soya really stood out to me. The Nakajima match on the 19th. So Yuma Anzai had a bunch of really good matches. Manabu Soya actually got a really good match out of Lance Anoa'i. And what's funny, I went 4 stars plus on that. What's funny is I got Rex from Gerard DiTrolio, no relation to Finn, before I watched anything. And he had Manabu Soya versus Lance Anoa'i on there, and I thought he was ribbing me. And
thought he'd throw in one just to,
just to fuck with me.
Right,
and
right.
I sent him a message. I'm like, really? Soya versus Anoa'i? And he's like, I don't know. It was Lance's best match, and I thought it was pretty good. So I was like, all right. And I looked on Cage Match and had like a 6.9. I was like, all right, I'll watch it. But it fucking rocked. It fucking rocked. Soya was so good in this tournament. He really came across like a guy that they should get behind. So, and then there were guys that didn't come across well at all. I thought Jake Lee, I don't even know if he hit my notebook once. To be completely honest, I don't think he did. I'm looking at it now. The Kano match that people went crazy for. Did you watch that match?
I did. Yeah, I did watch that. I liked it probably a little bit better than you did, but I see now that it's got an 8.86 on Cage Match. I don't think it's that good. I thought Kano was really
is mental.
That's is a wild rating. I thought Kano was great in that match, and I thought they got a little bit out of Jake Lee. Like the most charisma I've ever seen out of the guy did come in this match. Like he did look pretty good, but yeesh, I don't know if I can go that high on that. I'm like
3.5 star. That's a 3.5 star.
I'm 4 flat on it, which is not, that's a good match.
I can't kill you for 4. I can't kill you for 4, but I was bored to tears. I thought that Adam Brooks had a terrible tournament. I thought he didn't set himself apart or stand out at all. Adam Brooks. I thought that Jack Morris was okay. Really wasn't put in a position to have great matches. I'll tell you who was a dud. He just isn't going to surprise you at all. Yuki Yoshioka. I've had.
Oh yeah. I'm over him.
I've had enough of that guy. He's there's nothing there. Now he did have one. Okay, I liked the Kano match on the 11th. I went 4 stars on that. Outside of that, he's one of the guys I had to stop watching. He's just such a fucking dud.
Yeah, I bounced around a little bit in this tournament. I didn't watch as much as you did, but everything I saw with him, I didn't love. And then he had that 6-man on the final night, and he's in there with Masakitamiya and Marufuji and Sugiura and Inamura and Anzai, and he was like 6 out of 6 on with those guys. You know what I mean? It's just like,
I believe it. I didn't watch that match, but I believe it.
I'm like, dude, let's go, man. Come on.
Daike Inaba was okay. I thought his Nakajima match was his best match. Yeah, I don't know. They brought in a lot of outsiders, like Saxon Huxley was in the tournament, but you have to remember he's a tag champion right now with Thatcher. So you're gonna have your champions in the tournament. It was a nice mix of guys because they had some different guys in it. But the standouts were Soya, Go Shiozaki, Nakajima, Kano, no one that would really surprise you except maybe Soya. Soya was, I really feel like they're missing the boat if they don't push him, and it really feels like that's kind of what they were building to here. Now the final night, the final didn't land for me. I don't know.
Nuts. You're nuts. I thought this was a Joe Lanza match nuts. Through and through. You're nuts.
Maybe. I mean, I thought it was okay. I didn't hate it. It just didn't. Here's my problem with the match. Okay. The story is Go Shiozaki has taken all these beatings in the tournament. He had to go through a decision match. Now he's in there with Kano, who's kicking him in the head. And, he's dead behind. He's knocking him out, dead behind the eyes and all that. there wasn't enough of a big comeback for me. I feel like the finish was so abrupt.
That's fair.
Considering the story that they were telling. Like, I felt like Go should have been harder for him to overcome this 2-week-long story of the tournament, the story of this match, and he kind of just came back quickly and just beat him, and it's like, that kind of left me a little empty. The story of the match was good and sound, with Kano kicking him in the head and trying to beat him by knockout and all that. And Go is just so good at being the beaten up old veteran. He's so good at that. And I didn't hate the match. I just didn't, I don't know. It didn't hit me at that kind of level. I would go like 3.5, 3.75 stars, maybe.
Wow. Yeah.
Like
I'm surprised.
Good match, but not a great match.
Yeah. I'm surprised. I thought you'd like it a little bit more. I mean, it's super hard hitting.
I thought both Soya matches smoked it.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. I think I like this better than the Soya match from the night prior. Or 2 nights prior, or whatever. I forget the exact dates there. I think I like this one a little bit more. It was slow moving at the beginning. I get that, and the crowd wasn't fully invested at the beginning, which did make it kind of. But there was a weirdness about this too, because the crowd not making as much noise made the Go chops that much better, because he'd hit one of these chops and like it would just reverberate in the entire arena, and then little by little.
I don't mean to cut you off. But it wasn't just me, but the crowd wasn't into this, right?
They weren't at the beginning. No, they were not. No, it was not just you. I was kind of surprised, too, because I was like, this seems like a bigger match and a bigger deal, and the fans just do not seem to be fully invested. But I will say by the end, they were just going absolutely fucking insane for this match. And then he hits the Emerald Flosion, and I think there was I get what you're saying, that there maybe wasn't enough of a comeback. I think that there was a good comeback. Maybe not a great comeback, and maybe you do need a little bit more for Go, who was getting his ass kicked. And
I want epic in this spot.
Yeah, especially when he's been beat down the entire tournament, and Kano's the young upstart. I get that for sure. But I don't know. I thought these guys beat the fuck out of each other. I thought this went 30 minutes, and other than a slow period at the beginning, maybe the first 10 minutes or so, I thought the last 20 flew by, and they just beat the ever living shit out of each other, man. I don't know. It's just the simple stuff that I needed out of my wrestling. Sometimes I watch a lot of bad, shitty wrestling, and then this was a match where both guys just came in filled with sweat, chopping each other, dropping each other on their heads, kicking each other in the heads, like screaming and spitting and snarling. I don't know. It just worked for me. It just landed for me on this particular day of watching it at that time. But I thought it was exceptional. I really did like it. I went 4.25 plus. Really liked it, and saw that 8.61 right now on Cage Match. So I'm siding a little bit more with them than you on this one. I just thought it was pretty solid, and definitely a match to go out of your way to check out from the tournament.
Yeah,
to me,
I thought it was good. I thought it was good, just not great.
That's fair. That's fair.
Sometimes they learn you, sometimes they don't.
Did you watch the fucking Josh Barnett Funaki match?
I did. What'd you think?
I thought it was fucking atrocious.
I thought it was all right. I mean, it wasn't as good as, obviously the main event was better, but the first half was, garbage. But I thought the physicality later, when Funaki broke his nose with the fucking knee, I mean, business picked up for sure. He had to have broken his nose, right?
For sure. Yeah, he was gushing blood.
So Barnett comes off, and Funaki throws a knee and hits him in the face, and you just knew immediately he caved his face in with it. And Barnett eventually, he knocked him out with an overhead fucking German or something like that. He threw him and knocked him out, I think was the finish. And the ref just stopped it.
Yeah, he was in a triangle or an arm bar or whatever, and Barnett just lifted him up and dropped him, and then this ref was like, "Oh, that's it, it's over." So
lifted him up, dropped him, and then it was like KO or ref stoppage, whatever. But I don't know, like it didn't blow me away, but I thought I was gonna hate it, and I ended up kind of liking it. So I don't know. It's the kind of match where I'd give it like 3.25 or something like that, 3.5, maybe for the broken nose. But I could see why you hated it.
Yeah,
you hate Josh, but you cannot stand Josh Barnett.
I like some Josh Barnett. I don't like when he's just. I don't want to watch two guys rolling on the ground for 11 minutes.
They rolled for a couple minutes. Look,
I don't need to see that.
This was a 10-minute match, and they rolled for like 4 minutes of it. So I understand what you're saying. But then when they stood up, Funaki's doing the leg kicks. I thought Barnett did a good job selling those inside leg kicks. Barnett, I don't know. He didn't have a training camp for this match. I can promise you that. He was
a little puff, yeah.
Little flabby.
It was a little flabby.
Josh Barnett. But I thought, once he caved his face in, how can I hate on a match like that? But by modern Masakatsu Funaki standards, I enjoyed it. Now I tell you, did you watch the semi-main event?
Yes. I watched the whole show, actually.
Okay, so Kaito Kiyomiya and Rohei Oiwa against Yoshinari Ogawa, the old rat boy, and Zack Sabre Jr. Okay. Oiwa looked like a fucking superstar.
Okay, thank you. My note is star, capital S, star. Oiwa, he's a dude, man. That guy's a dude.
And I knew this was coming, but I didn't know it was coming this fast and to this extent. I mean, New Japan just keeps pumping him out. I mean, I don't know what they're going to do. This guy looks the part for sure. And it hit me when I was watching this match. This is so funny. Kaito Kiyomiya goes to the G1, right? And we're thinking this is great for Noah. They got him in the G1. They got him in Sonata's block with all these other young guys. It's 2 guys advance. Kiyomiya is going to go to the tournament and lose, right? But that's okay. It's going to be a good for him, good for Noah. He goes to the G1. He finishes with a losing record. He doesn't advance to the tournament. And then on the rest of the shows on the back end of the tour, he's teaming in prelims with a young lion, Rohei Oiwa.
Right.
And we're like, what the fuck? They couldn't have treated him any worse. The point of him in the G1, from the New Japan perspective, was simply to set up Rohei Oiwa's excursion to Noah.
Yes.
And to send Oiwa to Noah to team with Kiyomiya, which is so funny to me. That Noah didn't push back on that, didn't ask for anything in exchange, right? Now we know, with the benefit of hindsight, New Japan don't give a fuck about Kaito Kiyomiya.
Hell no. Why would they? They don't need to.
Right. And Noah didn't push back and say, all right, we'll do this. We'll take Oiwa. We'll let him have his excursion. Because for people who don't know, Rohei Oiwa is doing his excursion in Noah, which really isn't an excursion. He's staying in the country. It's kind of, offbeat and different, right? And the kayfabe story is Kiyomiya took a liking to him teaming with him at the G1, and now he's going to team with Kiyomiya and Noah and do his excursion there. But it's like the whole purpose of Kaito Kiyomiya in the G1 was so New Japan could set up sending a young lion to Noah.
Yeah, who now completely overshadows Kaito Kiyomiya.
Yeah. It's fucking wild.
Hey, here comes Oiwa with his fucking chiseled body and his charisma and his oh my god, in this match. He
looks like a fucking $1 billion in that ring.
I know.
Like with his new gear and his haircut and his body. It's unbelievable. And it's like we all fucking worked ourselves into a shoot. The whole point of this guy in the G1 was to fucking bring a young lion back to Noah with him. He couldn't look like a bigger geek. He could not look like a bigger geek. And oh, by the way, he missed his own company's tournament to do so.
Right.
To put up a losing record and become a tag team partner with a young lion. Man, did New Japan play Noah like a fiddle.
Yes, they did.
They played them like a fiddle. If I'm Noah, at minimum, okay, good plan. He goes to he advances in your tournament. You can beat him there. Then maybe you try to get an extra nibble. Can he get a draw with Sonata? No, out of the question. Okay, no problem. But as long as we have him advancing, right? You try to get a little more. But you can't expect too much. At minimum, winning record and advancing? No, you don't even get that. Here's what you get. You get a plate of shit. You're going to eat the shit. And then we're going to send the young lion back with him for you to team with.
Right. So you can help him get over a little bit more, but then he's pretty much instantly going to be more over than you. So
that's the rub. This motherfucker, Oiwa, is going to get pushed to Noah.
Yep.
Like the end result of this is they're going to win the fucking tag team titles. They're going to win the tag team titles. This young lion's going to go to Noah and fucking tear through their roster and win titles. And Kiyomiya went to New Japan and had a losing record.
And he's going to America.
God,
he's going to America in a little bit too. He's doing his little tour of America, so he's going to be gone for a bit.
Well, listen, he wants to be in WWE. We all know that. He was on his way with fucking Muto to WrestleMania, and then he got his concussion or whatever, and he couldn't go. So I think they sent Soya, right, instead.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, or Inamura. I forget who.
Inamura. That's right. It was Inamura.
But that was a tryout. Muta had he had brokered a tryout for him.
Yes, Inamura, who's now going on an excursion at age 30.
Yeah, and he's going to do a fucking tryout. Is there a tryout camp coming? I guarantee you there's a tryout camp.
I have no idea.
Why else would he be coming here? You think he's coming here to work fucking AIW?
Kaito, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure if Kaito.
Or whatever the fuck he's working. Who's even working?
He is Kaito. I know Prestige has booked him. A few other places have booked him so far, but
yeah, great. He's going to make a couple bucks while he's here trying out for WWE. That's what this is. Because he couldn't come in fucking April. But, and that might explain everything. The only thing I can conclude anymore with this guy is that they know he has one foot out the door. That's the only thing I can conclude. They got fucking played.
Or they're just really bad at this. Yeah, that's fine.
I can't accept that you're that bad. But anyway, the match was very good. If you're a New Japan fan, you have to check out Ryohei Aoiwa here. You have to.
Yeah, Ogawa and Sabre are so good. That team fucking rules. I think
they were a team a decade ago.
I know. I think New Japan needs to find a way to just bring Ogawa in and just trade him for
so awesome.
Trade him for somebody. You know what? Take Oiwa. That's fine. Like New Japan, they need him probably, but he'd be a superstar. You know what? Oiwa for Ogawa. It's a bad trade.
I just saw, I wouldn't trade Oiwa.
No, I'm joking. I'm kidding. I'm not doing that.
I wouldn't trade him for anyone on the roster.
No, I'm trying to think of who's a good. Oh, I've always said Hiroki Goto. That's what I've said. Give Hiroki Goto to Noah. Take Ogawa back.
Yeah, fair. There would have been a time where I would have cursed you for suggesting that Yoshinori Ogawa should leave Noah, but this isn't Noah anymore.
No,
I don't know what this is.
Yeah, dude, this roster is so fucking weird. I watched this entire show, and it's like there's so many white guys and luchadors and stuff, and I'm like, what is this company? It's like Stallion Rogers is around, and it's like he's the former Kurt Stallion. He's there, and you're like, okay. And then there's like matches go from like Manabu Soya to Stallion Rogers, to Dragon Bane, to Anthony Green, Saxon Huxley. It's like high 69. I'm like, what is this roster? It's so weird. Daga, Chris Ridgway, and I'm like, what is this?
Meth store Zack Sabre Jr., you mean?
Right. And then I gotta watch Barnett and Funaki fucking roll around for 10 minutes, and it's like, what is this thing? It's so weird.
Though? I enjoy. The shows aren't bad.
They're not bad. Yeah. And then Alpha Wolf shows up, and you're like, all right. I don't know.
You get Josh Barnett and Masakatsu Funaki in a martial arts rules match where they're breaking each other's noses. And a few matches earlier, you have a 4-way scramble with Ninja Mac.
Right. It's so strange.
You're right. It is a diverse roster. And then you have Anthony Green and fucking Kurt Stallion.
What the fuck
Stallion Rogers,
doing?
Whatever.
And they're like, he's going to be with us for the rest of the year. And I'm like, all right, cool. Like, what?
Well, Stallion Rogers is basically a regular.
Yeah.
And, because he can't work in America with all the whatever he fucking said on the podcast or whatever. And then, so he's a regular here. Anthony Green's a regular now with the good-looking guys, and Lance Anoa'i was in for the tour, which is another weird one when you're watching a show like this. Then there's like women's match, like randomly in there. It's
such a weird roster. Every match was different. Every match was different than the one before, which is good.
I'm not
like
really
that.
A complaint.
No, it's just strange. Yeah.
And then the constant, you get Muhammad Yone in an opener because.
Time, no matter what.
Like that's always going to be the case.
You could book 1,000 guys and 17 different styles of wrestling, but Muhammad Yone will be in that opener no matter what. If it's Noah and there's a green ring, Muhammad Yone is there to be the opener.
Fucking Yuki Yoshioka might have been the least interesting wrestler on the entire show too. I've had enough of that fucking guy. I'm not sugarcoating it anymore. You got to look like you care. You got to at least look like you care. I compare him to like Yuma Anzai. Come on. It's like it's not even close.
Yes.
Is that a good transition to the All Japan? You want to do the All Japan
let's
stuff?
do it. Yeah, let's do it. We'll fit it in there.
But anyway, N-1, listen, 15 notebook matches. You can't listen. It was an excellent tournament. So
I'm back in on Noah for a little bit, I think. I think I'm back in for a little.
You know, a lot of the friends of Muto don't get booked that much anymore. And, you know, it's we're months and months away removed from Muto's retirement. Now, nobody goes to these shows. I mean, they had 2,000 people.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
They had 2,000 people in the Body Maker, you know, the Osaka Body Maker.
And it sounded like it. And it sounded like it.
For an N1 final. And, you know, but no one goes to anything anymore unless it's WWE. So it's like, you know, but it's kind of depressing watching these Noah shows in front of fucking 300, 400 people. And then these All Japan shows, same thing. Now listen, the where should we even start? Should we just do the you want to do? Well, I don't know what you watched. Did you watch the Royal Road final?
I just watched the final of the Royal Road. I don't know if you caught up on everything. So no, actually, sorry, I watched the two semifinal matches and the final match. So I saw they wrapped up their tournament August 27th, the Royal Road. Let me get the whole schedule.
It's 27th from Aichi.
Yeah.
And here's what I'm talking about. Less than 1,000 people.
Yeah,
it's just
brutal.
It's kind of sad. But listen, when we talked our way through this thing, we convinced ourselves that Ryuki Honda was gonna beat what's his name? The champ. Who the fuck champion is coming? Yuma Aoyagi in the first round. Remember? We talked ourselves into that.
Yes.
What we didn't see was him beating Kento Miyahara in the second round. Like,
right.
He beat both of them.
Right. We had a tough time getting to that final without it being like Kento versus Ishikawa or whatever, Kento versus Tsuji or Kento versus Kojima. I think I did say that Kojima would be a good guy to get to the finals, but yeah, Honda, I did not think he was going to beat Miyahara and then come back and beat Suwama the next night too, or a couple nights later.
Right. Like we talked ourselves into Kento Miyahara getting the match with Yuma Aoyagi right away, but they went in another direction. They had Ryuki Honda kind of tear ass through everybody, and he was kind of the Manabu Soya of this deal, where it's very obvious. Now, I trust All Japan to go through with it, though.
Yes,
because
for sure.
That's the difference, because, and I know I'm jumping ahead, but after Kojima loses to Yuma Aoyagi, who comes out to challenge Ryuki Honda? Based on what? Based on beating Aoyagi in the first round and getting to the final, right? So he comes out as the next challenger. So they used the tournament to elevate Honda, and they didn't even have to have him win it. So that's pretty good booking, right? They have Kojima win the tournament, and you figure, all right, while we have Kojima around, we may as well use him to try to pop some houses here. And so they put Kojima in the first title match. And, you know, the title match. Okay, so I watched like 4 shows today, and now I'm confusing myself. Kojima wrestled Yuma Aoyagi in Niigata.
Yes,
right?
on September 3rd. September 3rd.
And that's where Aoyagi beat Kojima. They also had Hiromu on that show.
Right,
so
right.
They really loaded that up. But they did 1,500 people on that show. And then they came back like a week later in another building in Tokyo, and they drew almost 1,700 people for Kento Miyahara and Yuma Anzai on top.
Right, and that's September 9th was that show.
And that's September 9th, but we're jumping ahead. So let's circle back to the semifinals and the finals of the Railroad. I did not watch the semifinals. So quickly, was there anything worth breaking down?
Not really. So you had it was all the same night as well. So you had the two, Honda and Suwama and Kojima versus Ishikawa. I think both were pretty middling, both kind of middle of the road stuff. I really can't recommend either. I think I went like 3.5 on Suwama and Honda, and I think I went like exactly 3.5 on Kojima and Ishikawa as well. So just fine, but nothing to absolutely go out of your way to check out.
The news there was they were sending Honda to the final.
Right.
And, he wrestled Kojima in the final, and I really liked the match. I'd probably go 3 3/4 or something. Kojima, I thought the finish, man, when Honda went for that, he does like that leg cap. He was going for like that leg capture powerbomb type deal that he does. And Kojima saved himself by grabbing the top rope.
Right.
And then Honda couldn't get the torque to slam him. And then he had him again, and Kojima grabbed the ropes again and got out of it. And then he hit him with a lariat.
Fucking took his head off.
And that should have been the finish.
I agree. I'm with you too.
But he kicked out, and then moments later, he hit him with the proper Western lariat, and he beat him. But man, I know Kojima wants to win every fucking match with the Western lariat, but fuck, man, that should have been the finish, or he should have just gave him the Western lariat after the escape. Like, I don't know, that felt like the moment to me. But just short of Notebook to me, but a really good match. And then that set up Kojima versus Yuma Aoyagi in Niigata. Like we said, that drew about 1,600 fans. It had Hiromu in the semi against Rising Hayato. I haven't watched yet, but I'm going to watch because I want to see that match. And this, I thought, was awesome. So Yuma Aoyagi to me just brings a different energy. He's still, to me, he's like a snowball rolling down a mountain, collecting charisma. Like, he's more charismatic every time I watch him.
Yeah, every time I watch him, he improves a little bit. I didn't see this match, but I will say, as I've jumped around and watched some All Japan this year, every time I watch him, I'm like, this guy's getting better and better every time.
Yeah, so this was a Notebook match for sure, probably 4 1/4 range. Aoyagi, as expected. They really, it had this match had more pomp and circumstance than you might think. Like, it felt big. And, with Kojima winning the GHC title last year, whatever it was, and going after the Triple Crown again, I don't know. I felt some feels watching this, and Aoyagi is just so charismatic now. And that, of course, leads us into the 9th in that building in Tokyo there, that Yoyagi National Gym or whatever, where they did the Kento Miyahara versus Yuma Anzai match. Now, you did watch that one, right?
I did, yes. Saw that one.
All right, so you go ahead and talk about that, because I just talked about the other match.
So I will say the one thing that, if you do go watch this match, one thing to notice, and we've talked about with Yuma Anzai in All Japan and how they've done a very good job of building him up, that dude is a star in that building. He comes out and the people are going nuts for Yuma Anzai. And there's, again, the crowd's not big. It's a little under 1,700 or whatever in this building. So, it does echo a little bit, but this crowd is into Yuma Anzai. And it's one of those moments where Kento comes out and he's just kind of like, you're not rooting on me enough. Like, I want a little more out of that. And anytime that happens, you get a very good Kento too, because Kento with a chip on his shoulder is a hell of a worker. And he went out here and just beat the shit out of Yuma Anzai during this match. I mean, they went out there and I don't know, man, I loved this match. And I just loved how cocky Kento was the entire time. I liked how underdoggy Anzai was the entire time. I liked the crowd kind of oscillating between really, really, digging, Kento Miyahara because he's their god, he's their savior. They love Kento Miyahara. But at the same time, this crowd really likes Anzai now. So we're finally at a point where there's another guy that's getting that sort of love. So you kind of had that oscillating back and forth where people started to kind of root on Anzai a little bit. And the chance for him started getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And he just kept rising up as Kento's just beating on him and beating on him and just enough. Anzai would come up and just get a little bit more going. And then the final stretch of this match was awesome. And then, yeah, obviously Kento does get the win, beats Anzai, continues to, you don't want Anzai to beat Kento at this time like that. You save that up for a very, very big moment and a time that it's going to mean a lot more than here. This is not the time nor the place to do it. And this is one of these companies where how you lose is important, and this is a great example of a guy losing but gaining by losing, because like Anzai felt like a dude here. This felt like a guy who's getting closer. He's not there yet. He's getting closer to being able to challenge Kento. He's not quite there, but the fans are invested in, we're going to ride this guy and we're going to ride this wave with him. And when he does beat Kento, it's going to be the biggest thing in the entire world if and when it happens. So no, I thought this was really, really good. I went 4.5. I love this match.
I went 4.5 too, and I think it's as good a match as you can get, where one guy just completely kicks the living shit out of the other.
Anzai, you can count on one hand how much offense Anzai had, but that's good. That's the way it should be.
I know you're going on vacation and everything. You would really like a lot of Anzai's N-1 stuff. It was him working from underneath as the clear-cut underdog, and those Noah guys just beating the fucking shit out of him. And he's just coming across like a future guy. He really is. I mean, he's
a future mega baby face. He really is.
You got to remember, man, like, I remember when he debuted and you weren't super impressed. He was a fucking literal baby. Like, it was his first match.
It was his first wrestling match. Yeah.
We're so hard on these guys sometimes, and we forget that, like, this dude was fresh out of the fucking dojo, literally. Like, and he's in big spots, and we're like, he could have done this. It's like, fuck, man, he's so good. Like, he's so good. Like,
thankfully there wasn't this many people listening to the first episode that we did, which I'm sure sucked. There was 4 people listening, so it was a lot easier to suck in front of 4 people as opposed to 90, 100, 1,000 or whatever that are listening.
And that's the thing, he never even sucked. Like, we acknowledge, like, you were harder on him than I was, but like, he was good right out of the gate, and you could see that there was something
for sure. Yeah, I was mostly pushing back on like people being like, this guy's generationally great, and I'm like, I don't know, I don't quite see it just yet, but now I did. Let's like, now that we're,
and then it's like, with hindsight, you're like, wait a minute, it was his second fucking match,
right? Yeah, like, with a year of wrestling under his belt, now you can see, holy shit, yeah, this guy is, and that's why the guys evaluating him and Yuji Nagata and the like, looking at this guy and going, yeah, this dude's got it, this guy is it, and they were absolutely right.
Yeah, and it's like, even he's 24, like 3 years from now, he's still going to be like, 4 years into his career and still green. And I can only imagine how good he's going to be by then. So, I hate to keep picking on the same guy, but I compare him to Yoshioka, and it's like, I don't know. I mean, it's like, it's not even close to me in terms of projectable, stars moving forward.
Right.
But,
right.
Miyahara was so great in beating the living shit out of this guy. And yeah, you're right. It sets up stuff down. It would have been all wrong for Anzai to win. He's gotten so much so soon. He's had a fucking Triple Crown match already, and that's a lot of that circumstance. But, yeah, it was, look, All Japan, they're doing 1,600, 1,700 people in these buildings for some of these shows. They're nipping at the heels of Noah with a fraction of the budget. And I think that has to be noted. Like, Noah did 2,100 for their N-1 final with, significantly more money backing and production and bigger stars without question, they're and all that. And then here's little All Japan with their little indie budget and their smaller roster and their shows that aren't as big as an N1 final. And, in the N1 finals in Osaka Bodymaker, where you can cram 6,000 people in there and they're putting 2,000 people in it. And here's All Japan just chugging along with these shows and doing 1,700, for a show that doesn't even have a title match on it. Miyahara and Anzai, all right, you expect the Triple Crown match with Kojima to do 1,700, but this show didn't have that, and I just feel like that's a product of one company that's been booked so well this year, and they're making a genuine effort to make people with this Triple Crown champion and Yuma Anzai and all that, and using Kojima wisely as they have over the last month. And you have another promotion that was killing it during the Muto retirement tour and did nothing to make anyone while they had all those eyes on it. And we warned this.
Joe, if only somebody could have said something about this at the time and now been proven right by that. I just, somebody should have said something.
They squandered all of that. And they didn't make anyone. And we're seeing the results. And again, I really hope they run with Soya. I am confident that Ryuki Honda's getting pushed out of all of this. There's no question in my mind. He came out and challenged after Aoyagi won.
Well, I don't know if you saw this.
Dog collar on and everything.
Well, I'm sure. I don't know. Did you watch today's show? I don't know if that's even up on their service yet. But
no, the last show I watched was what we just talked about, the 9th.
Well, this is a pretty big result here in the main event, and I didn't see it either as well. It's just the show from today. They had
Honda match on top.
Yes, they had Honda and Anzai versus Miyahara and Aoyagi, Yumi Aoyagi. Yeah. They went to a time limit draw. Now that's making dudes. You know what I'm saying? Like that's
huge.
That is a huge result there. I mean, it was in Shinkiba first ring or whatever, but that's an important result there to have Honda and Anzai not lose, go to a time limit draw with Miyahara and Aoyagi. That's big. That's making dudes. That is classic All Japan Pro Wrestling making guys stuff. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. And Miyahara and Aoyagi, by the way, are still the tag champs, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if that was a title match.
It was not a title match, as far as I could tell.
Aoyagi's a Triple Crown champ. Ryuki Honda, so there you go. And he's teaming with Anzai. So it's not just Aoyagi, it's not just Anzai. Now they're trying to make Ryuki Honda. And they had him beat Aoyagi and Miyahara and Suwama.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He beat Aoyagi, Miyahara, and Suwama in the fucking tournament. And now he's teaming with Anzai and going to a draw with Miyahara and Aoyagi as the tag champs. That's how you're making guys. That's how you're at least attempting to make guys. Now, it's Shinkiba first ring, and there's more people in our fucking chat right now than we're at this fucking show. But that's how you fucking make guys.
Yeah.
I see Hideki Suzuki sleazing his way into All Japan. Nobody needs that.
Oh, no. Damn it. No.
Nobody needs that.
Go away, please.
Why don't you slink off back to 0-1 where no one has to pay attention to you anymore? How about that? But yeah, and let me tell you something. The Saito brothers holding that fucking 9th string tag team title.
Dude, I love those guys now, man. Now that they're just shitbag, they're like fat and shitbags and they're greasy. I fucking love them.
Yes. That's perfect.
They're gross. They have long hair. They look like they smell. And it's just like, yeah, that's actually the better role for these guys.
You know, these guys were the Dippin' Dot 24/7 champions. I'm not making any of that up. Dippin' Donuts 24/7 champions. And now they're the G Infinity fucking champ, whatever that is. They beat Czech Shimantani and Hayato Tamura for those titles back in June. So now they're holding these grimy ass fucking GLEAT tag team title deals. You know, that's perfect usage. You know, they're involved in the Tenru Project tag title fucking thing.
If you can get involved in the Tenru Project tag team titles, you just gotta.
You know, perfect usage, using them as just, you know, dirty sleazers, part of Voodoo Murder. You know, because it's recognizing that that's what you're going to get out of them. You know, they're really doing a great job deploying people perfectly, is what they're doing. And All Japan has been a delightful fucking watch all year.
Yeah, I'm all the way back in on them. So,
yeah,
that is All Japan. That is Noah. Those are Japanese tournaments, and that is it for this episode of the Flagship Podcast. Did you see? No, we're running out of time. I don't want to get into it. So, Dragon Gate
we're over anyway.
Dragon Gate had their new rookie. I don't know if you watched his match or whatever.
I didn't see it. No,
he's good. He's really good.
I haven't had time. I'm gonna get to it. I haven't had time.
He's really good. I won't spoil it for you. They did fuck his name up royally, but whatever. I'm not.
I saw the name.
Yeah,
I saw the name.
It's terrible, but whatever.
Yeah. But he's good though.
He's good. Oh yeah, he's good. He came in. He had a really, really good match, and then after the match, he said, the competition here kind of sucks. There's no one on my level. And the crowd went, oh, because he's a fucking rookie back from excursion, and they're all happy about it. And he's like, I don't know, you guys gonna give me some good competition or what? And everyone's just like, oh, excuse me, like you're a rookie. So he just immediately grabbed everything by the balls, and yeah, he's good. I think you'll like him a lot. So, yeah, check out that match if you get a chance. Yeah, it's
I'm
the
so
tag
behind
match.
on everything. I'm still catching up from fucking G1 putting me behind. It's really
it's hard. Yeah, it's hard.
And right now, after watching so much N1 in like 3 days,
you might.
I gotta take a day or two.
I can't believe you watched most of that tournament in 3 days. It's a lot.
You gotta listen. You gotta fucking commit to the job. Listen, we blew it because we should have talked about these two tournaments the last couple weeks, and they slipped through the cracks. We fucked up, and I just fucking bared down, and I fucking watched everything I had to watch.
Yeah, last week when we were jacking around for an hour, we could have built that, but we didn't watch it in time. And now we have this week where massive news stories happen, and then we have to stuff the Japanese tournaments in the last part of the show. But we got it done here. So that is it for us. That is Joe. I am Rich. VoicesOfWrestling.com, obviously, for all the previews, reviews, columns, including the Lucha Blog, Cubs fan, CMLL preview that we talked about as well. Voice Wrestling Podcast Network on your podcast app of choice. YouTube, make sure you follow us on YouTube, like and subscribe to the videos there. We're trying to grow that channel a bit. Discord, VoicesOfWrestling.com/Discord. And then, of course, if you want more bonus audio from Joe and I, Patreon.com/VoicesOfWrestling, VoicesOfWrestling.com/Patreon, or FlagshipPatreon.com is how you can do that. So again, that is Joe. I'm Rich, and we will talk to you next time on the Flagship Podcast. Take care.
Hey kids, do you like wrestling? Well, we like wrestling too. We are Shake Them Ropes here on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Myself and Chris Novembrino kind of doing a lazy river of wrestling criticism, going through the news and whatever happened in stateside television wrestling. And also, you know what? Sometimes we just like to watch old stuff and talk about that too. Love for you to give us a listen. If you haven't already, we are Shake Them Ropes here on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network.
Hi, my name is Tyler Fornes, and I am the co-host of The Good, the Bad, and the Hunky here on the Voice Wrestling Podcasting Network. Every week, my co-host Fred Moreland and I discuss all the happenings of All Elite Wrestling and everything going on in the universe of Tony Khan. We talk about Dynamite, we talk about Rampage, and we will talk about Collision when the time comes as well, along with all the appearances outside of AEW from all the best talents in All Elite Wrestling. This is one of the more cohesive wrestling companies in the entire world, and we discuss every intricacy about it, including the unique booking of Tony Khan that is both a huge positive and a major detriment. Check us out every single Thursday here on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network.